What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the David Carson Show. For some reason, my thing is glitching out. One moment. Let's try to fix that. There we go. What the hell is going on with this turning me whiter than I already am? What are they trying to do to me? What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode. We got a lot of stuff to get to today. Trump enters a not guilty plea in Georgia. Democrats will start World War III to stop Trump. Democrats will start World War III to stop Trump, warns Tucker Carlson. How storm surge from Hurricane Idalia impacted downtown Tampa. New York City predicted to pay over $10 billion per year on migrants as AOC admits there's a border crisis. Strong Idalia winds rip Florida Billboard during TV report. Mitch McConnell freezes again during event. He needs to retire. New poll predicts Trump 2024 landslide. Democrats plan to cheat by removing Trump from the ballot. Even the Washington Post has admitted Biden's lies. Hunter Biden emails reportedly reveal plan to shut down Burisma probe. And finally, DOJ goes rogue, refuses to answer GOP subpoena. Biden DOJ targets Trump but protects Hunter. Very interesting stuff. We have that and a lot more. I'll give you all my takes on all of that stuff today on the David Carson Show. But let's get started right away. Let's jump in, shall we? Trump enters not guilty plea in Georgia. Sorry, excuse me. Still a bit under the weather. That's why I took the day off yesterday. Should bring that up. Yeah, I took the day off yesterday. Figured I'd get on my schedule more. I was hoping to get ready a little bit earlier, but under the weather, kind of slept in a bit to try to rest up. So, doing a bit better. But, we're actually on somewhat on time. I'm doing it during the day. It's not 12 a.m. this time. That's the thing is last night, if I would have did it, it would have been like 10-ish, and then it would have went to 12 a.m. I would have stayed up all night cutting the videos again to schedule for the morning. I was like, I'm going to take a day off and try to get back onto a normal schedule, at least close to it. All right, but let's go. Trump enters not guilty plea in Georgia. Here's a clip.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We have breaking news. Former President Trump has entered a plea of not guilty and waived his right to appear at his arraignment. That's according to a filing this morning in Fulton County. Trump and 18 other defendants are charged with conspiring to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Trump had been scheduled to be arraigned in person on Wednesday. And this comes as we learn that Republican Georgia Governor Brian Kemp will not call a special session to investigate the prosecutor in the case, Fani Willis, after Republican State Senator Colton Moore had called for an emergency session to review her.
Brian Kemp is a traitor, a rhino, and just completely spineless. He's not even going to investigate this woman, which he's just going against attorney-client privilege to go after Trump's lawyers. All they did was give him legal advice, and she's trying to put them in prison for doing that. But he's not investigating her. She's clearly corrupt.
Actions. I want to bring in senior reporter Catherine Falders and ABC News legal contributor Kim Whaley for more on this. Catherine, why waive that right to an in-person arraignment? And could we see other defendants do the same?
Right. We have seen other defendants already waive their right. We were getting a sense that the former president might do this as well. I don't think that he necessarily wants to make another trip down to Georgia. That's a lot of it here.
Waste
and look,
of time.
If you can you see the court document right there, the papers of the not guilty plea. And if you can just enter it in court papers, then there is no real use, his lawyers believe, and so does he, in showing up down there. So he's obviously pleaded not guilty to the 13 felony counts in this indictment. He's waived his right to appear, so we will not be seeing him down there next Wednesday.
Kim, in terms of strategy, why not do this? If you don't feel like showing up and making the trip and going through the hassle, why do you show up? Is there a downside to doing this?
Well, first of all, is some jurisdictions it's not an option. So in Manhattan, for example, he had to show up, but in Georgia, this waiver is a possibility. The reason to go to an arraignment is to have the government list in court the charges against you and to have the judge read you your constitutional rights, including the right to have counsel. Here we have a sophisticated defendant who now is in his fourth arraignment and very good counsel. So the protections or the formalities and constitution implications really don't apply to Donald Trump, although the publicity on the other side might be something he personally would prefer, but a good lawyer, I think, would not want to see that either, frankly, and keep it just to the judicial system and not have this play out in politics.
Catherine, Governor Kemp now says he won't call a special session to investigate DA Fani Willis, saying he doesn't or hasn't seen evidence, at least, to warrant that. So what does that mean going forward?
Well, look, it means that as of this point, he's not going to listen. Governor Kemp isn't going to listen to those far-right members of his party who have...
Far-right members? What did she just say? This woman is ruining America and everything that America stands for by trying to prosecute his attorneys who gave him legal advice and filed legal paperwork. She's trying to set that precedent. Far-right members everyone should be wanting her to investigate this. Everybody, left, right, center, I don't care what you are. You want to have a situation where your lawyers give you legal advice and then they get prosecuted? Attorney-client privilege is out the window. They have notes in there apparently from his attorneys, like stuff that they said and wrote back to each other. They have that documentation in the case that they're going to show to the jury. Like, that's what the precedent you want to have set. This is all just nonsense. This is insanity. And then only the far right members of his party. I don't even know what far right means anymore. They call everybody far right. They call Tim Pool, who's on the left on a lot of issues. They call Joe Rogan far right. They call Elon Musk far right. What does that even mean, far right? Everyone's far right unless you're on the left, apparently. But anyway, it doesn't matter. If you're on the left, you should be investigating this woman. But no, we want to get Trump. We want to get Trump. We want to get Trump. It's just like that's all they care about. They don't care about setting these crazy precedents and completely violating the rule of law. Like, it's unbelievable. It's insane to me how political the country has gotten. Even in the 60s and everything, there was never this political for the parties back and forth. Now it's just like, it's so crazy. It's just wild. Even though you know this is all wrong, you want to prosecute your political opponent, so it doesn't matter. Let's set some crazy precedents.
Called him to call a special session and investigate her. As you said, he says obviously he will not do this. He hasn't seen any evidence that essentially he should launch this in a way, and that's just what he's going to do moving forward. I think it's worth pointing out that even though he hasn't seen any evidence, that the governor has said that he has taken issue with the probe in terms of the timing of when it was announced.
Oh,
but again,
that's what it is.
Evidence to formally.
Not that she's indicting his lawyers for giving legal advice. That's not evidence. The evidence is in the proof's in the pudding, as they say. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, the evidence is there. It's right everywhere. She's prosecuting his lawyers. That's the evidence.
A special session. He says that it wouldn't even be constitutional.
Oh, Kim, what happens?
But getting rid of attorney-client privilege, that's constitutional, apparently. He's just lying. Isn't constitutional. A prosecutor is violating the Constitution straight up, and a lot of other is making a mockery of the court, wasting everyone's time. But he's saying it's against the Constitution when she is trying to indict his lawyers for giving him legal advice. Okay, what an idiot.
Now that we're not going to see former President Trump appear in court for his arraignment.
As we've seen in the other three criminal cases, the next step is for the government to turn over to Donald Trump's lawyers some of the evidence that was presented to the grand jury. So that would include witness transcripts, people that appeared before the grand jury, notes of law enforcement, any other documentary evidence. And there's also an obligation the other direction. But I think the big piece will be motions. Donald Trump's lawyers have indicated that they plan to file, and I expect it to be in all four cases, but including in Georgia, sweeping motions relating to Donald Trump's purported immunity as president from any criminal process. I think that's going to be a big one. The notion being that he was acting as president, and you have leeway to make mistakes as president, and this was within his official capacity. Therefore, there can be no liability. I think that proves too much. There can't be, it can't be okay to commit crimes under the auspices of the White House. And then we'll see other things relating to evidence, relating to the First Amendment potentially. Then we could have a change of a plea, because a plea is basically...
Obama spied on Trump's campaign as president and nothing happened to him. But now it's like you can't commit crimes. What? Going and wanting to investigate anomalies in the election is now a crime. There was never a crime before, but now in the 1960s, JFK did it. He said what they call now fake electors. Before all this, they called them alternate electorate. But they did it in 1960, and that's what ended up making JFK win the presidency, because then they did a recount in Hawaii, and JFK did win. So if he wouldn't have sent those alternate electors, he would have lost, even though we fairly won. So, yeah, it's dumb. And now they're saying that's a crime to do this. No, it's part of the legal challenge. You legally challenge it. Yeah, these people are just, like I was just saying earlier, it's so political now. It's insane. Even if it's right or wrong, they don't care. They don't care at all. It's just get Trump.
Just saying, and not guilty. Listen, government, I'm going to make you prove your charges against me. I doubt
Rightfully
Donald Trump would switch his plea. We might see some of the other co-defendants switch their pleas, which could change the stakes for Donald Trump and for the government. If there are people that are willing to testify,
they're smiling. This woman is delusional. They're smiling in their mugshots, like a third of them are. And you think any of them are going to switch their plea and go against Trump? You are delusional.
Against him that have knowledge.
This is the dumbest case ever, a RICO case for this, for them challenging stuff that everyone's challenged throughout American history. Okay, but they're going to switch their plea because they're scared of losing. Give me a break.
That would be damaging to the president's case, and then we would have a trial. So it's a long process. It's going to be complicated because he is a former president. And this is really unprecedented under the Constitution. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like this goes to the United States Supreme Court even before the trial. Normally, you have to wait to the very end. There's something called an interlocutory appeal that allows really important issues to go all the way up on appeal. And here, when you're talking about setting a precedent for the office of the presidency, I think we could see unelected members.
It's not only that, it's setting a precedent that you can prosecute lawyers for giving legal advice. She's just going right over that, glossing right over that. Just don't talk about that. It's not only, something like this, a precedent for the presidency. Not only that, it's also a precedent for every American that says, okay, and every lawyer that says, okay, if you just have your lawyer give you advice and you take their advice, both of you can be prosecuted for that. It's crazy.
The judicial branch, that is people in robes on the Supreme Court who cannot be held accountable, deciding some of these important issues for the rest of us.
All right, Catherine Falder.
But Fannie Willis, she's deciding all this for us, and this idiot judge in Fulton County is setting this precedent where you can't have lawyers and attorney-client privilege or anything, but, these people in robes, they have no accountability. Where's Fannie Willis's damn investigation? Investigate this woman. This is all BS. It's stupid. And not only is it stupid because, like I keep saying, the crimes, they're not even crimes. It's stupid. And then it just sets a precedent for everyone. I can't believe everybody, because of the lawyer thing in particular on this case in Fulton County, everyone's not freaking out about this. Left, right, center, whatever. It's insane. It's, again, just get Trump, get Trump, get Trump. You can tell anyone that is for this case, they don't care about democracy. Saving democracy is what they always say, right, in the media. We need to stop Trump to save democracy. So you're going to ruin democracy to save democracy? Give me a break. Stuff is so frustrating. Anyways, I'll leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. Yeah, this one's even better, folks. Yeah, this is great. This would be fun if this happened. Definitely sarcasm. Democrats will start World War III to stop Trump, warns Tucker Carlson. Here's a clip.
Tucker Carlson made a bold prediction while speaking with Adam Carolla. He said that in order to defeat Donald Trump in 2024, Democrats will start a hot war with Russia. In the event that such a thing occurs, my friends, we are probably looking at World War III. because any kind of conflict between the U.S. and Russia would likely trigger, well, actually, no, it literally would trigger Article 5 of NATO, pulling basically all of Europe into a conflict with Russia. Of course, Russia, being a part of the BRICS nations, would then call on its allies and welcome to the fray.
Yep.
Now, I think
welcome to the jungle.
Tucker Carlson is mostly wrong here for one simple reason. Now, in essence, he's correct. I mean, it's a bold prediction. It may or may not happen. I don't know. But what I mean to say is we are already at war with Russia, just not formally declared in any such way that triggers various treaties and, say, Article 5 of NATO. In which case, Tucker should probably say they will formally declare war on Russia. And if this prediction is true, oh boy, you know what this means? It does not mean that Joe Biden comes out and says the war crimes that we've seen happening in the Donbass must be stopped. Vladimir Putin must be held accountable. No. My friends, in order to justify a U.S. declaration of war on Russia, you will need an attack on a NATO nation. Could be the United States. Could be Poland.
Could be a false
Poland
flag.
being particularly close to the conflict. There's a lot of concerns. That could be the case. Not to mention you have, Latvia, Estonia, etc. And now we have the story about a drone strike in Moscow, one of the most severe Russia is blaming on Ukraine. And there's questions about where the drone strike may have originated from, because if it did originate from a NATO nation, then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to World War III. Russia, under attack by NATO, declares formal war or reaches out to China and says, now's the time. The U.S. being split in various combat theaters, such as the Pacific and Eastern Europe, China takes its opportunity to move on Taiwan, and welcome to the fray. We've got a lot of military operations happening in Australia right now. And this is not a coincidence. It looks like we're gearing up for a major escalation to war. The question, I suppose, is Tucker Carlson correct? Well, it's hard to know for sure. I mean, saying that there's going to be a hot war with Russia to stop Trump, I can see that happening.
Yeah, me too.
In my mind, I see
too.
this as a decent probability. That doesn't mean it's an overt, it's not a guarantee, it's not a foregone conclusion. Maybe decent probability just means 7%, but it's there. It's like looking at that roulette wheel spinning around, that ball's going around, and you got two spots on that wheel that says war, war. Now, there's a bunch of things that could happen, but I think war may be one of them. Why? Let me read for you what Tucker Carlson said, and then I'll explain why I believe he's actually making a really good point. There's a complicated view to what this is, but it makes a lot of sense. Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson predicted a hot war with Russia would be used by opponents of former President Trump to beat him in 2024. He says, they will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do COVID again. Whoever on the right is afraid they're going to do COVID and mask mandates, they're not going to do that. They can't do that. They've already been exposed. That won't work. They're going to be, no. What they're going to do, what are they going to do? They're going to go to war with Russia is what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. It's more than that. He says they need to declare war footing in order to assume war powers in order to win. I believe that, and I think that the evidence suggests that's true. So if you're worried about our politics getting like even more than it already is, and people being hurt in our politics, which is entirely possible, you should be worried about the prospect of an open. We're already at war with Russia, of course. You see, he knows this. We're funding their enemies, so we're fighting Russia. But I mean, an open battle with Russia where we say we're at war with Russia. I think that could easily happen. I think we could Tonkin Gulf our way into it, where all of a sudden missiles land in Poland. The Russians did it. Our NATO allies been attacked. We're going to war. I can see that happening very easily. I completely agree with Tucker.
Yep.
I completely agree.
Yep. So do
Daily
I.
Caller mentions the Biden administration announced in July plans to send Ukraine M864 155 millimeter artillery shells known as dual purpose improved conventional munitions, which dispense smaller explosive weapons over an area to attack personnel and vehicles. Cluster munitions are controversial due to the risk posed by dud submunitions that could cause harm to civilians long after conflict is over.
They'll do it still.
You also got the UK sending depleted uranium tank busters, which Russia says is the use of nuclear weapons. Oh boy.
I could see their point.
Let me break down a little bit and get into what Tucker is saying. I think he's right. It's not so much that Democrats are so unhinged that they must defeat Trump and they will go to war to do it. It's that Democrats want to go to war, and it is an opportunity to defeat Donald Trump.
Yep. Win-win
War
for them.
powers will give Joe Biden tremendous political edge. There's a
Especially
lot they
against
can do.
Russia.
There's going to be universal mail-in voting. They're going to executive decree ballot harvesting legal everywhere and say, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a serious crisis, blah, blah. They can make up whatever reason they want using emergency declared war powers, and people will be terrified. Here's the real scary thing. Tucker mentions
all of that.
a missile strike in Poland. And then it's, oh no, now we must go to war. I think it could be worse than that. In order to get the U.S. in order to actually build up public support and be warned, this matters, they will try to trick you. He says Tonkin Gulf. Y'all know what that is. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, where the U.S. lied about an attack on one of our ships to justify entering the Vietnam War. Now that generated a lot of public support, but
that is
not
proven.
enough. And there wasn't enough public support, so ultimately what ends up happening is you get mass protests, and then eventually the U.S. is forced to evacuate. We, ask a historian, did we lose? Whatever. The fall of Saigon. There's a lot I don't know about when it comes to Vietnam, but we did not do well. We got defeated for the most part. I think that's fair to say. What would the U.S. need in order to justify overwhelming public support for an attack on Russia and an escalation into direct NATO-Russia conflict? Americans would need to die. So what happens? Well, maybe a missile hits Poland and it kills a bunch of American soldiers. No, I don't see it.
That wouldn't be
enough. I don't see
enough.
that being enough.
Has to be on U.S. soil.
I think it's going to have to be some kind of large-scale strike, which Russia would dare not do, which means the likelihood would be if the U.S. does want to enter a conflict, they need a false flag attack. Of course, y'all know what false flags are. Like I mentioned, the Gulf of Tonkin, that was a false flag.
It's crazy.
You attack yourself, you lie about or exaggerate.
Tim Pool a few years ago, I don't even think would touch false flags, and now he's bringing this up. This guy, it's how everyone's going, man. Everyone's like, okay, you start to wake up to one thing, and it's just slowly, you start realizing all this other stuff. Very interesting.
That happened to you and blame your enemy. Then you muster up public support. Imagine here in the United States, let's say a water reclamation plant blows up. Disabling water for 200, 300,000 people. Crisis. But it's on par with East Palestine. A major disaster. Biden rushes in by helicopter and he says, my fellow Americans, it is clear that this plant was taken out by an act of sabotage by Russian forces. A cyber attack, evidence points to blah, blah, blah. Then the experts come on and say, we believe the attack originated from insert country, a group known as this, that, has taken credit for it, and it'll be a false flag. Now, I don't know exactly what happens. But then you'll have people in the city screaming, demanding help. Biden flustered, saying, we are doing everything we can. You take a look at Maui and how much money they sent to Maui. Very little. You take a look at how much money they sent to Ukraine. What'll happen in the event of a false flag? Don't be surprised if they send tons of money to this disaster site because it is effectively the Ukraine war effort. You'll then get some government response saying we are desperately trying to deliver supplies to this metropolitan area. Maybe it's a town of 300,000 and their water's completely shut off. Emergency trucks coming in. And then we hear that people are dying. Or something like this happens.
People aren't going to die from a water
industrial
shortage in America.
Sabotage through the internet, a cyber attack. Now, I don't know that will happen. I am not suggesting it will happen. I'm saying consider the possibility that you will be lied to. I'm sure the media is going to run wild and be like conspiracy theorists, blah, blah, blah. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a hypothetical scenario. I am not literally saying it is going to happen. I'm saying,
of course not.
One potentiality based on history, such as the Gulf of Tonkin incident, would be the U.S. exaggerating or falsely claiming it has been attacked. Why? They've done it before. Based on history, I suggest there is a probability it could happen. There's also another probability. We are at war with Russia, and Russia does decide enough. The U.S. is supplying weapons to Ukraine, and it's time for a strategic strike. That's also a real possibility.
No, I don't think so.
And maybe We've already been attacked. There was a cyber attack.
If after the Nord Stream pipeline blew up, if Russia didn't retaliate from that, no, I don't think Russia would do anything like that. They just want the land bridge for the Donbass region, and that's what they're looking for. An all-out war with the United States would not give them that at all, and they know it.
Back on oil infrastructure. You guys remember this? We talked about it last night on Timcast IRL. Gas pipeline was shut down due to ransomware. That's scary. Ransomware shutting down the grid, shutting down our energy production. And then what? Ladies and gentlemen, war were declared. Tucker may be right. We are going to see something truly tremendous so that they can stop Donald Trump. You know why? Oh boy, because of this story.
It'd have to be bad, which is really scary.
You have no choice. Trump tells Glenn Beck he will absolutely lock people up if returned to the White House. Do you believe that they will allow Donald Trump to come in and arrest them? Yeah, come on.
It's funny because people like Tim Pool, even he's just like, no, I think that Trump lost the 2020 election because they have mail-in ballots and COVID and stuff. But then he's just like, they won't allow him to win again. But it's like, oh, maybe think about that a little bit, Tim.
But I don't know what's going to happen. Let me lay it out very simply. There is a real possibility of war. There is a real possibility of conventional, straightforward military conflict. The U.S. has not formally declared war against Russia, but anyone with a brain knows that we are at war with Russia. I don't even think it's fair to call it a proxy war. There are U.S. citizens on the ground fighting in Ukraine. U.S. military personnel, special forces are in Ukraine, providing logistical support. We are supplying weapons to Ukraine. NATO is supplying weapons to Ukraine. You do not get to, I mean, imagine how absurd this is to have to effectively hire 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, maybe even 10,000 people to fight on your behalf, give them a bunch of weapons, command them, tell them what to do, and then say, but it's not us. I'm not talking about Ukrainians. I'm talking about U.S. volunteers and PMCs that are actively on the ground. Yeah, sorry. Russia knows what's going on. It's this, we live in this world where people are trapped beneath this wall of rigid norms. They can't see through. The example I often give is how people think contracts are law and definitive. Yeah, let me just remind you for the 800th time. You can have a contract with someone that is ironclad and a judge can say, nah, and rip it in half. It's meaningless. It's open to interpretation because we are humans. This idea that warfare must be Congress issues a declaration of war, the president then agrees. It's not been that way since World War II. It does exactly what he wants when he wants. Doesn't matter. So for Russia, when they are looking at U.S. citizens, private military contractors with U.S. weapons and U.S. logistics, and the flagship of their Black Sea fleet is blown up because of U.S. intel and U.S. weapons, do you think Russia's being like, well, it was U.S. weapons. It was the U.S. that gave the intelligence to the individual who pressed the button. But to be fair, it was a Ukrainian guy who pressed that button. Yeah, sure. Putting a U.S. intel officer grabbing the hand of a Ukrainian and mashing the button with it does not change the fact that the U.S. blew up Russia's flagship in the Black Sea. Donald Trump accuses Biden of cheating, election interference over DOJ prosecutions. Well, this one's obvious. We know it. So the only thing I think that actually may stop World War III, civil war in the United States. That's an interesting question. But if the U.S. starts to rip itself to pieces. He makes a good point, but that's scary. I'm sorry. The U.S. is ripping itself to pieces. And if it escalates to factional conflict, there's not going to be U.S. efforts overseas. We'd be done. We would not have the capabilities to command such infrastructure. I wonder if Russia and China know this. And
it's terrifying. War.
They do. To be fair.
There's a lot I don't know. Do. They definitely do. TikTok, they have all the data. China knows this, and they're pushing more with TikTok because they have so much influence. Look at what they ban and look at what they don't ban on TikTok. China's pushing us into a civil war. They definitely know.
I have a cursory understanding of what is currently happening. I have a surface level understanding because I am a human being who lives in the United States and simply reads the news. And there are people in Russia and the U.S. who have access to secrets we do not know about. Russia probably knows more about what's going on in the U.S. than you do. Fact. Because the news doesn't report a lot of things. I mean,
well, not only that, like I was just saying, TikTok, and then China's an ally of Russia. So, yeah, they'll tell them.
That interview with Tucker Carlson, he says that Obama gay and that Obama does crack. Okay, and that was known, but nobody wanted to report on it because you'd get cut off from the campaign and then you could lose your job. Okay, yeah, sure, maybe, I guess. We had that letter come out that said Obama, fantasized about banging dudes. Hey, more power to him, I got no beef.
Yeah, who cares?
I'm just saying, there are things you probably
Especially
don't know
Obama's
about that
not
are true.
irrelevant anymore. Or Obama's
And I don't know
not
where
relevant anymore.
Where we ultimately end up without access to that knowledge. I can only make predictions based on what the news says. That being said, you take a look at TikTok. You take a look at the Eugenia Cooney thing where she's like morbidly ill skinny on the verge of death.
Cover
she's
that.
getting 8 million views.
It's gross.
TikTok is absolutely promoting, I don't know how to describe it. It is cultural influence that is warping and shattering the minds of young people. Overt groomers and pedophiles on the platform, poisoning the minds of children,
That's who
morbidly obese
TikTok
individuals,
promotes.
encouraging people to eat garbage and harm themselves. It's just all of this content is actively encouraging self-harm. Imagine a U.S. media apparatus that said, hey, kids, do you want to be a big influencer and get 1 million followers every day? Do 10 push-ups when you wake up, run a mile, and eat healthy. Don't forget to eat a high-protein diet, eat your vegetables. None of that. They're saying eat ice cream, be fat, and don't have kids. That's what they're getting from social
Be
media.
transgender.
Chinese-owned social media. So I think they're well aware. What prevents war? Trump is accusing Biden of cheating. He's right. There's no question about it. In the event conflict erupts in the United States, and man, I just got to tell you, we are so blind to what it could, would, and probably will look like if conflict erupts. And everyone just assumes all the time you're going to get like Florida, Ron DeSantis coming up and be like, we're going to be seceding from the union. We've it and it's over. That's just never going to happen. The U.S. is split. There is a constitutional republic currently battling a multicultural democracy. Multicultural democracy, of course, means cult. It means zealotry. It
Exactly.
means fall in line or we punish you.
Yep.
And the constitutional republic basically means live and let live and let's work together and then, compromise so that we can live together. The multicultural democracy has no illusions of such a thing working or existing in their grand system. So what happens? Tucker Carlson says they'll start a hot war with Russia. We're already at war with Russia. He's correct. And but they'll formally declare. That won't be possible if the U.S. is embroiled in internal conflict.
They might try it anyways.
Don't understand about the revolution.
Who knows?
The U.S. War for Independence. It was a long time coming. It was a 20-year period. The Constitution didn't come about till something like 10 plus years after the Revolutionary War.
I bring that up all the time when people are like, you couldn't, if you didn't have a federal government, everything would just be chaos. I'm like, how much government was actually active on a large scale during the Revolutionary War and then the period after? We didn't have any giant federal government doing all the stuff that they do today. But then you say, hey, imagine if you gutted all the federal government. Oh, no. That would be chaos. Everything would break. It's like, okay. Somehow right after the revolution, it happened. People could say that's a long time ago, which it was. But it relatively, at the time, look at the power London had over people and everything. So, and then there was just no government during and after the Revolutionary War, and people got along okay. They had state government and local government, but those were really small. And again, no federal government, and it still worked out.
It wasn't until the Treaty of Paris that the U.S. formally gained their independence. And you can make the argument. The argument is the U.S. gained its independence in 1776 with the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But I don't think so. And that's wrong.
I don't
Why?
think so either.
If the founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence and then Britain came in and just massacred them all and took the land back, the Declaration of Independence would be nothing but a terrorist decree. And the history of this country would be that the crown quashed extremists who are trying to overthrow the government in an insurrection. So it wasn't until we won the war with the treaty and signed the Treaty of Paris that we were actually an independent nation. Amazing. Anyway, what could happen? Well, in the event that there is some kind of internal conflict, history will be written in very interesting ways. But it will be impossible for us to maintain a war with Russia if we're fighting ourselves, which is why I bring up the American War for Independence.
Well, what's interesting is Tim Pool says we're kind of like in a Cold War, Civil War anyways. And then he's saying the same thing about Cold War with Russia. So it's like, could you even maintain a war with Russia now? It's a good question, isn't it?
There are a couple reasons why the colonists won.
I mean, especially with, sorry to keep cutting Tim off here, but especially with, like all this stuff that's going on with, with Russia's civil war and all this. It's like, how can you even do this? Sorry, I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought. My apologies.
Do you believe that the colonists won through...
Oh, right. So, yeah, with the military is already, they can't even recruit anybody. They can't recruit anybody. Everyone's either too weak or the people that should join the military, they don't want to join. They don't want to join either. So it's like, who's even going to go fight Russia? I'm not going to go fight Russia. Unless Russia's on the shores invading the United States, leave me out of it. And that's like what everybody is saying nowadays. Like, just leave, unless they're the people that are, I guess, actually fighting in Ukraine, the volunteers, they'll go do it. But aside from that, it's like, who's going to go fight Russia? You do a draft, most people just won't go. Like we were just talking about, like he was just talking about a civil war and everything. The war with Russia could trigger a civil war. What if like what if 80% of the people they want to draft just say no? What's the military going to do? The amount of people that they don't have the weapons that the military does, but a lot of people in the military might end up saying no. Like, yeah, I wanted to defend the country, but I don't believe that we should be going to war with Russia, and I don't think it's real. If that happens, man, that's going to be crazy. And even if they do want to, what are they going to do? That's just going to start a civil. So they go and try to, let's say war is declared on Russia. They go and mobilize all the military. They send them to Poland, Ukraine, all this stuff. Who's going to be left to try to get people in the draft? In the draft for Vietnam, people hated it. It's interesting they even went along with it. But in World War II, because of Pearl Harbor, if you ever watched the show The Pacific on HBO, definitely check it out. Everyone wanted to go. People were signing up before the draft. You know, nowadays, people just won't go. They're just like, no. The life is too comfortable nowadays, and the information's just too... Everyone has all the information now. Back in Vietnam, no one knew who like Vietnamese people were. Now you see on YouTube videos all the time, like all the manufacturers going to Vietnam. Vietnam's the new China and all this. And you can see people, you see interviews. So it humanizes people, you know? And I don't think like most people, I don't have any problem with Russians at all. I don't think people do. People are like, okay, we don't like Russia, like they invaded Ukraine. But you think every person on the ground in Russia it's part of that? Yeah, definitely not. I'm surprised how many people went to that draft in Russia, but I guess it was smaller and all the military wasn't mobilized. But again, like they mobilized the military in the United States and nobody wants to go. What are they going to do? It's just that it's going to be a dud. It's really interesting to think about.
Your grit and determination, passion for a cause that the British did not have, this fundamental belief that we are imbued by our creators with inalienable rights, and with that passion marching behind us, we defeated the Redcoats. You're wrong. Do you believe that we mounted a guerrilla war where we jumped out from the bushes and attacked the British as they marched blindly through the fields? Wrong. Yeah, it's much more complicated than that. Well, those things certainly play a role, let me tell you. The UK, Great Britain, I believe at the time, was embroiled in war in Europe. And so they were split and unable to maintain active conflict in the colonies. They tried.
Yeah, and think of how far away the colonies are compared to Europe. It took them so long to get troops here. So if they would send them here and then send them back, like, wow, that takes months and months and months.
France came to the aid. The French intervention assisted the U.S. in their war against Great Britain and the Crown. Why? France didn't care about whether the colonies were independent. They were at war. They said, we need help to defeat the British. These guys are fighting the British in the colonies. Let's assist them and take out a key economic component of the crown, of the British crown. There were a lot of other factors that played a role. It was external funding that assisted the colonists in their war against the crown. And also this idea that the colonies fought a guerrilla war is just not true. Well, it does play a component in the war. For the most part, the American War for Independence was conventional, with the Continental Army marching in the fields and firing the same as the British, the Redcoats, were doing.
It's crazy.
I do think it's funny that it was like blue versus red. It's like they're wearing red and we're wearing blue. Got to know who each other, who we are.
Yeah, no camo.
But there's a
So
morsel
old.
of truth to all of this. My point? The U.S. will struggle to maintain a war with Russia. And at this point, I'm not sure it's possible. So this is my
I agree.
counter to what Tucker Carlson said. I believe he makes a good point that they would do something like this. But if the U.S. were to declare formal war, even if there was a 9/11 style attack on the U.S. or a NATO ally, this country would implode. I do not see a scenario where
either.
Joe Biden could muster up public support for us to engage in active war with Russia, effectively triggering World War III.
We're too divided.
It may occur. I think about people like Ben Shapiro. Ben's a reasonable guy. He's a very reasonable guy. And, a lot of people are mad that he's very pro-DeSantis and doesn't like Trump. No, but I think Ben's a reasonable guy. And when you see something like the George Floyd incident, Ben comes out and says, this is bad. He's correct because he's trying to be just and reasonable. He's trying to call out injustice while still being a reasonable, good person. The left, of course, calls him a fascist and other nonsense like that's stupid. The left will cry and whinge over George Floyd, but then completely ignore any other circumstance outside of their sphere of influence. They don't care at all about David Dorn.
Yeah.
But Ben Shapiro will say,
David Dorn's
injustice is injustice. So why I bring him up? In the event that there's a major attack on U.S. forces, NATO allies, or a U.S. piece of infrastructure that results in thousands of U.S. dead, Ben's the kind of guy to probably say, we can't allow Putin to do this. The United States does not just roll over and let our people be killed. Yeah. He would not be wrong. And I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. I'm saying he's the kind of guy who's going to just immediately be like, no, conflict in the United States and culture war is less material than the fact that we were attacked. You would get a decent amount of support from Democrats and establishment conservatives for war with Russia in this event. However, the more libertarian factions, populist factions will say no. We should not have been involved in the conflict in the first place. It is our intrusion into a border conflict in Europe, which has exacerbated the problem. Yep. And the solution is not to make more war, but to stop.
Exactly.
Here's a potential. In the event the U.S. does go to war with Russia for any reason, you may have insurgent factions in the United States just outright say this is an illegitimate government going to war. You would see partisan conflict in the U.S. because you've got people who don't want World War III.
It's interesting. He's
now,
basically agreeing with what I was saying. And just to be clear, I didn't watch this before.
10 or 15 guys
I'm
in a
sure
small town in the middle of nowhere rejecting federal authority. I've talked about it before.
No, there'd be a
people
lot
need to
of
understand
people
it is
rejecting.
not out of the question for 5 guys. Let's play this game. People on the right don't believe the Whitmer kidnapping plot because the FBI was heavily involved with informants and they were encouraging it to happen. And yeah, we know those stories. We had one of the individuals on who explained how they actually didn't even know where they were going. And the informant was the one who was supposed to be giving them the address. FBI was setting the whole thing up. And they even went to the wrong place and that hurt their case in court. So we know they do that.
Yep.
But to the left, certainly you must imagine if that's possible, then what I'm saying is entirely possible. What happens if you get 5 dudes who are just like, that's it, we're not going to be involved in this? And then they just stop adhering to federal decree and federal authority, and they start acting as though the federal government.
I'm not saying any of this, but they'll just won't. People just won't go to a draft. What are they going to do if people don't? What happens if you don't go to a draft? You go to prison. Muhammad Ali went to prison, right? So it's just like, what are they going to do? Put everyone into prison? It's like, come on, they'll just give up. It's just like, what are you going to do? Throw everyone into prison? Who's going to be managing all this? It just doesn't even make any sense. Then that's less people that are going to the draft too. Who's going to manage all these people in prison? Who's going to build these prisons that are popping up now? It's like, I just don't see it.
Authority. They have no confidence. It starts there very small. And then if these things erupt in small pockets of seriously only a handful of people.
I don't think it will be small
This
pockets.
is what I try to explain
big.
to people. The federal government does not have the capability to quell 300, let's say 300 small areas of the country where a handful of guys are just like, we're going to do our own thing. And they start rejecting federal law. They start
especially during
acting
a war
as though
with,
the federal government,
especially during a war with Russia too. All the crazy military, all the craziest of military, they're all overseas. Now they have to worry about this. Again, I just don't see it. It's a different time than when this happened before. Everyone's so connected with the internet. Everyone's so lazy. I wouldn't say I'm lazy. Why would I want to go to war? But I just don't want to go to war. It's hellacious. People have seen all these movies all these years since Vietnam. I've seen the Pacific. I've seen like all this horrific stuff. The ones I don't want to spoil like anything. It's not really a spoiler, but there's one small scene where one of the guys, he goes and almost kills a girl, and then he's just like, no, and he leaves. You know, this stuff is just go watch the Pacific on HBO if you haven't seen it. That'll be like, okay, I'm not going to war. All of that stuff is just awful. Like negotiate. Even Xi Jinping, leader of the CCP, is a somewhat reasonable guy. He's not like Mao. He's not like Stalin. No one's like Hitler nowadays. They probably wouldn't get into power if they were. They might, like Putin might want to go take a land bridge in Ukraine and stuff like that. And just like, he's not going to just go crazy World War III and just go completely nuts. I just don't see it happening. Like, what I mean by that is, like, he'll want to negotiate. That everyone would just be like, okay, let's negotiate. Let's end this. The United States, if they're pushing for this for their own obvious reasons, like Tim is talking about, they won't. But the people on the ground will all be like, well, we're just not going to go fight. That's what I think anyway.
You take a look at the West, where the Bureau of Land Management controls a lot. Let's say you get Ammon Bundy times 300. And it's not an issue of conflict. It's an issue of people just being like, I don't care anymore.
I don't want to go to war.
We need secure resources for our community. The government would not be able to do anything about it. They don't have the resources. That's the kind of thing that can escalate to major conflict. The Bundy thing's scary because the federal government comes out and they start torturing and imprisoning these guys. But what happens when you get 100 more of them? They can't do anything about it. What happens when everybody knows what the federal government has done
for some reason
with the January 6ers and with what they do with Bundy is illegitimate? What happens when people finally say, no, we're not going to allow it? There is always an opportunity for escalation, which we desperately want to avoid. I remember that story like 10 years ago or whatever, or longer, where that guy I think it was in New Hampshire, refused to pay taxes and they surrounded his house. That's crazy. And what happens if we get 100 of those all at once? The federal government does not have the law enforcement capabilities to actually quell any of that. And then if they actually get into an armed conflict and someone dies, now you're going to get more propaganda and that could bubble up. It's hard to know what will happen.
Very scary.
I don't know what will happen. There's all of these potentials around us, but it's fair to say that a lot of people think we are walking into World War III. World War III may have already started, and that this election is going to be bedlam. They're already trying to remove Trump's name from the ballot now in Arizona. What do you think happens? I don't know. I just hope that you are responsible, nonviolent, and preparing to protect your family however you need to, with food, resources, water. There could be looters.
Nonviolent is the key.
But I'm just telling you, I think Tucker is right. And we'll see. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel.
Scary.
Thanks.
Very scary. All this talk is scary. But what can you do? It's bad. This is what's so bad about just like big federal government in general. They'll just go and try to push everyone into it. It's insane. Big government is what they do. They'll just go and lie and they'll push us into it. And then the left, they don't care about war. They like the funding of Ukraine. A lot of people in the right do. But you want it to escalate to this? It's like you go fight on the ground if you want that. You know what I mean? It's like it's crazy. Because I don't want any part of people. They were Ramaswamy was on Fox the other day, and they were arguing, and one of the hosts on there, Brian Kilmeade, I think his name is, and he's just like, "Oh, you want to give them 20% of Ukraine? Really? They've already occupied it. It's not like they're killing civilians that are there to get it anymore. They already occupied it. Why not? I mean, Crimea got taken in 2014. No one cared in Crimea. They're not going and doing a rebellion against Russia. They just left it. They're just like, okay, whatever. Just have it. I just don't know if it's worth all the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of civilians. And yeah, now there's drone strikes going and hitting Moscow. Now Russians are getting killed too, the civilians there too. They're not hitting military. The military is shooting down these drones and they're crashing into buildings in the city. So now more civilians are just getting hurt. It's nuts. Negotiate, it's at this point, 18 months. It's like, especially, I don't know, they're doing their counteroffensive right now, Ukraine is, but if this fails, it's just like, what are you going to do now? The counteroffensive also failed. You built this up for months. You hyped it up for months. It's not going so well, right? So now their only hope is to go drone Moscow. It's like, ugh, this is so dumb. Just give them the area they already have. And all that's destroyed now anyway. They ruined all of it. All of this is ruined. And I blame Russia for that. A lot of people are like, oh, you sticking up for Russia? Absolutely not. No. I wish Russia wouldn't have invaded. But you do got to go back before the war, and diplomats were begging the United States to stop pushing because they knew this was going to happen. If they kept pushing NATO and stuff in Ukraine, and they knew this was going to happen. So the U.S. could have just backed off, not worried about Ukraine, and then they wouldn't have invaded because it most likely wouldn't have invaded. And then this war wouldn't happen. But now that the war is happening, and now it's 18 months later, it's like negotiate, end the war, because this could escalate to World War III. It could get every NATO country involved. Could you imagine millions and millions and millions of Europeans and Americans, Australians is going and getting massacred trying to invade Russia? Me and my friend were having a debate the other day. He thinks that Russia's winning the war and that Ukraine is just, it's all propaganda and they're not doing anything. He thinks that Russia doesn't have Kiev because they don't want it. I was like, I think both of them are losing. I think both sides, the civilian deaths, neither of them have munitions. Everyone is losing. And he was just, and I said about a war with U.S. and China versus China and Russia. I was like, he's like, oh, that's crazy. You think that, I've said that the U.S. has a really good chance of winning the war, you know, because you see the weaknesses of Russia in Ukraine now. And he's like, well, that's crazy. You think that the U.S. can invade China and Russia on two fronts? I said, no. Whoever's invading, in my opinion, whoever's invading, if the NATO goes to war with Russia and China, the BRICS nations, whoever's invading is going to be the one who loses. That's what I think. So just don't go to war, you know, just negotiate. Like, okay, these are the terms, which I really beforehand, before anything escalates more, is that it just seems kind of easy. Just be like, okay, end the war, right? I don't know. Like I said, like Ukraine is doing their counteroffensive. Let them do their counteroffensive. They already have all the stuff there. But if the counteroffensive fails and they don't take back territory, what's the alternative? They're not going to get it back anyway. Just give them it and quit the killing, you know? I mean, that's what happened with Crimea. There was not, like, was there any deaths in Crimea? I don't think so. I can't remember, though. Maybe there was. You know, all the propaganda from both sides. Who knows? There is propaganda from both sides, and you never know who's. I think both countries are evil. Both sides are evil. Zelensky, after the drones hit Moscow, like the first time, like a few month or two ago or whatever, he's like, "Oh, now the Russians, now the war's coming to Russia," and he knew they were hitting civilian. He doesn't care. Both sides are just evil. They're like, kill civilians. They don't care. They don't care at all. It's wild. So, and I think the war needs to end right away. End the war right away. It's just, again, what's the point? Why would it, again, counteroffensive, but that's going to be over soon, which, I mean, honestly, with the counteroffensive or not, end it now. That'd be ideal. But I understand, like, they're going to want to go and try to do that, to try to do their counteroffensive, which I get that. But after that, it's just like, if you can't take back the territory, yeah, what are you going to do? And it's crazy because Russia's like, okay, we want the territory, and then if you cede the territory, Russia's like, okay, we'll end the war, and then Ukraine's like, no, until we get every piece of territory back, which they might be even including Crimea in that. Until they get that back, the war's not ending. So it's like, it doesn't. They're just no compromise. And Zelensky doesn't even want to go to the table to meet with Putin and everything. So it's like, this is crazy. But yeah, no war. I'm not good. I don't think most people are going to go to war with Russia. If they want to go to war, people could go fight on their own. The people that are going to push for it. But other than that, it's just like, why would anybody want to even go do this. It's like, let's just be diplomatic. I mean, one of the things could be, okay, to get Putin out of there, get someone else in there. No one else is going to go. Who could take his spot, though? That's a thing, So, but I mean, that could be something. And then it's like, we'll just go back to being like allies, like after the Cold War, right after the Cold War, the United States and Russia were allies until all this stuff happened. And then the conflict is stupid because Hillary Clinton and people like that, John McCain, everyone kept on saying, Russia, Russia, Russia. We need to fight against Russia. If they wouldn't have done that, then we probably would have encroached on Ukraine and tried to get them into NATO because people wouldn't have been scared of it. And then all this nonsense probably wouldn't even have happened. So just calm down the rhetoric. Get out of Ukraine. If this stuff does happen, watch out for it. Be smart about it. And just don't go to war. Diplomacy is the way to go. It's not it's like I said, it's not Hitler or Japan from 100 years ago when they just wanted power. Russia just wants its land bridge just in case for security, I mean, China kind of wants power, but I don't think they have the means to do it. So it doesn't, that kind of matters, but I think they would negotiate anyways. China, Xi Jinping's also going to negotiate. They're not just madmen like before, like 100 years ago, right? They're somewhat reasonable. So, yeah, there's no point to go to war. But, I will leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. Hurricane news here. How storm surge from Hurricane Idalia impacted downtown Tampa. Here's a clip.
Let's go to NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra, who joins us once again from Tampa. So we know, Marissa, that storm surge is the big worry right now in the Big Bend area where the hurricane made landfall. They're bracing for up to 16 feet of storm surge.
Wow.
It's not as serious where you are in Tampa, but still, storm surge has been a huge story in the Tampa Bay area, right?
Exactly, and it's one that continues to be a problem. I'm going to turn over my shoulder to see if we could see that guy that was walking waist deep, and you guys just keep taking me as soon as he leaves. It's okay. The next time we have a hit, we'll catch the guy that's paddleboarding, because we've seen some interesting
Someone's
things
paddleboarding out there
when we're not live
that
on
is
the air
wild.
So we've seen a lot of people walking out here scoping this out.
She
I've had a
in the
chance to talk
water?
to a number of them and ask them, how normal is this? Now, the thing is, Tampa Bay is used to flooding. They're used to seeing these kinds of sites, but maybe this is a little extreme for them. I mean, look,
they built stuff. It's fascinating. So Austin, like a few years ago, used to flood quite a bit, and they built Waterloo Park 2 miles from the river-ish, and they have this gigantic 80-foot tunnel. It's huge. This giant 80-foot tunnel. And that's resolved the flooding a ton over the last few years. You would think cities like this that are prone to flooding build a giant tunnel underground, and when flooding starts, it drains underground into the tunnel. There you go.
Confident with driving. This is supposed to be Bayshore Boulevard. You can see that Tampa Bay has completely taken it over, and that car was not successful. That person that was inside of it had to get rescued, and they are not the only
Why would
ones
they try
that
to
had
drive
to get
in
rescued.
that?
From
That
what
is
we understand,
wild.
there have been several rescues in the area. We know of at least one confirmed one by St. Pete Fire Department that was over in the peninsula that we've been talking about. To the west of us, it's St. Petersburg and Clearwater, surrounded by the Gulf of Mexico on one side and Tampa Bay on the other. So, when it comes to how residents are feeling, because I know that that's a big question, we mentioned the fact that they're used to seeing flooding, but I did find it interesting. It depends on where they are. Clearwater Beach, we talked about that peninsula. I'm getting a lot of texts from people that I met yesterday who were very nonchalant, very unbothered and unconcerned. And then within the last hour, I actually had a chance to check in with them, and they've been sending me photos and videos, and they said that they're surprised because last year during Ian and during some of the other storms of, the recent memory, they're seeing more flooding in those streets than they're normally used to. So I think it's kind of 50-50, right? You've got people who are used to seeing flooding, but they're seeing flooding maybe more so than they're normally expecting, I guess, when it comes to hurricanes. I asked somebody who was here during Ian. She said it wasn't like this during Ian, but I've also heard stories of there have been hurricanes in the past where, and this is really sad, there were manatees that washed up on the shore here. I know, and so we haven't haven't seen anything like that because right now we're still in the thick of it. We're getting bans right now. That's going to be on and off throughout the day. Right before you guys took me live, we were getting hit by some rain and some wind. It's kind of subsided for now. I'm sure it'll come back as soon as we get off the air with you guys. But that's going to be on and off throughout the day. And get this, when we talk about whether or not the threat is going to be moving out, well, we know that this is going to continue to rise. We're expecting the surge and the floodwater, the tide, to reach its peak sometime this afternoon. So that's kind of what everybody's waiting to see, is how bad that gets before it gets better, guys.
Marissa, I know somewhere, I believe behind you, maybe to one of your sides there, are the bridges that you were referencing that head over to where the hospital is. I know that that's on that island that you had left from earlier so that you don't get stranded there. But something interesting was happening there. They put up sort of this, I think you called it an aqua fence, this guard around it, because I know it's one of the only trauma centers in the area. So to try to keep that hospital functional, as though people can't even get to or from it. Do we know how things are going there and if that was sustainable, that guard that they put up?
Yeah, so far it seems to be working. I mean, it's supposed to protect them from 15 feet of storm surge. Tampa Bay is not supposed to get anything beyond 7. They said somewhere between 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. That said, as we mentioned, we did see flooding to the point where it was difficult for us to get through. We know this bridge over here leading to it is closed. The other bridge is still open. We've seen some cars traveling through it. So far, their plan, their backup plans, emergency plans to stay operational seems to be working, and we hope it continues to be so, of course. Guys?
Very interesting. Yeah, luckily it didn't seem like it got too bad in Tampa. Like I said, people need to start doing the thing with that Austin does, or did. And the one thing, I guess, if the flooding continues, it could be something we jump on some more. I'm from Austin, by the way. I don't know if I clarified that. But yeah, so yeah, you go build these tunnels under like a park. They have a park over there, Waterloo Park. You can Google it. It's really nice. It just opened a couple years ago. And this giant 80-foot tunnel under it. Then they usually, and then there's the creek, Waterloo Creek. So what they do is they pump water from the river up to the top of Waterloo Creek to generally have it always be running, right? But then during a storm, they turn that off. And then the creek handles it, and so does the tunnel. It's a really good idea. A lot of these cities should probably do that more. It's like, when the subway gets flooded. It sucks when the subway gets flooded in New York or whatever when this type of stuff happens, but imagine how much more flooding would be on the surface. I just realized that. Yeah, that'd be crazy. So, yeah, more flood prevention, I think, would be great, and more cities, I think, should try for that a lot more. But with that, let's move on to the next story. New York City predicted to pay over $10 billion per year on migrants as AOC admits there's a border crisis. Finally, here's a clip.
So New York's Governor Kathy Hochul, she visited the White House yesterday to ask for help from the government for the Big Apple spiraling migrant crisis. Let's bring in now New York Congressman Mike Lawler, who sits on the House Financial Services and House Foreign Affairs committees and represents some of these suburbs around New York City. Congressman, welcome to the show. I want to quickly... Thanks for being here. I want to quickly read a part of this letter that you wrote to Governor Hochul and to Mayor Adams. And in this letter, you say, while New York City officials have chosen to embrace sanctuary city policies, suburban officials like the ones in our districts have not. As such, suburban counties like the ones we represent must not be forced to incur the financial and public safety burden caused by the policy choices of New York City officials. And this is the best part. You broke it. You pay for it. That's pretty direct. Tell me how this is impacting and, as you say, burdening the suburban areas.
Well, Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams have been an absolute disaster in dealing with this crisis. And not only have they been behind the 8 ball from the beginning, but the very policies that they embraced for years have created this crisis. The New York City shelter system was down to about 50,000 people in it. It's now up over 85,000. They've taken in over 100,000 migrants in just over a year. And since Joe Biden has become president, we've had 5.5 million migrants cross our borders illegally.
That's
the challenge here is not the work authorization, wait period of 150 days. The challenge here is the fact that it's taking 2 to 3 years for these asylum cases to be heard. And when they're finally heard,
outrageous,
70% of them are being rejected as not valid asylum claims. And so
it's all a waste of time.
Our municipalities in areas like New York
waste of time and money
are bearing the burden and having to provide housing, education, food. And this is a real challenge. And on municipalities like the ones that I represent,
yeah, keep in mind, this is one city, just New York. That's not Chicago. That's not all of California. That's not Texas. People are like, why is Greg Abbott sending everyone from Texas to New York? Like, why should us in Texas have to deal with this? Like, well, you're not for open borders and stuff. Texas defends its borders, best that we can here. So then, like, Biden is supposed to be in charge of protecting the borders, and he doesn't. Democrats are like, oh, everyone should be able to come to America. It's so great. Let's have everyone come in. But then they're like, oh, but we don't want to pay for it. Texas should pay for it. Why is Greg Abbott such a jerk? He's sending people up to New York. Well, people in New York are the ones who want it. You know what I mean? People in Texas don't want it. Why do we have to pay for it?
Have anywhere near the social services support system that New York City does. The state legislature gave New York City $1 billion in this year's budget to deal with this.
Not even
New York
close
City
enough.
is now claiming it's going to be upwards of $10 billion to handle this migrant crisis. This is funds, taxpayer funds.
I hope they're learning
that
something.
we don't have. We have veterans.
It's outrageous. Like, New York City infrastructure is falling apart. I watched this video recently about how the subway is so bad compared to, like, Tokyo, because Tokyo's always investing more and more money into it. New York's, it's just crumbling. The roads are crumbling. All this stuff in New York, it's so old. It's such an old city. It's all crumbling. They can't afford to repair any of it, but $10 billion on migrants every year. Outrageous. All the Democrats have to do is be like, okay, let's close the borders, build the walls, keep people from coming in, and we wouldn't have to spend all this money, and we could have great infrastructure. It's funny because people want to come here because the country's so great, which it definitely is, but like them coming here, ironically, because they're not making money, they don't know English or whatever, reason why they're not making money is because, well, it's illegal, right? It's illegal to hire people too. My point is the immigrants coming here, they want to come here because the country's so great, but then them coming here is making the country worse because the money's going to them instead of fixing infrastructure. It's insane.
Struggling. We have seniors who can't afford to pay their bills. We have people who are unemployed because our economy is still struggling. The cost of groceries, the cost
it's getting
of
worse,
living,
still
the cost
struggling.
of gasoline have
it's getting
gone
worse.
Up. And this Biden administration, coupled with the incompetence of Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams, has created an absolute mess with our immigration system.
Congressman, New York City's deputy mayor, she basically said a lot of what you're saying, but it's interesting. It's also coming from inside the House. Watch here.
I think with 2,900 people coming through the front door every week, even if we get people out in the shelter, even if we do get kids into school, if we do resettlement, it seems like we're almost like hamsters on a wheel if we don't do something about the front door.
Yeah.
So Hochul goes to the White House. She gets told she'll only get to meet with the chief of staff. She walked away basically with nothing.
Wow.
Again, incompetence. The deputy mayor is 100% right. If you don't deal with our southern border, you could give all the work authorization you want. You're still going to be dealing with the fact that you're
housing migrants in New York City, $100,000 per single family in shelter expenses. Oh my goodness. Why does it cost so much? I wonder. Isn't the average salary in America, just in average throughout everybody, $60,000? And that generally supports a family. $100,000, that seems like way too much. So yeah, that's crazy. So the families come here, and not only are they costing taxpayers so much money, it's more than a double a normal family would cost. I don't even understand why cost of living so high in New York. That's kind of an interesting stat that I don't fully understand.
You're having tens of thousands of migrants cross the border every week. We're talking about roughly 43,000 migrants a week crossing the border. I live in a town of about 49,000 people, so it's almost the size of my town crossing the border every week.
Well, not all that, but you know what I mean.
It's absolutely ludicrous. This is why House Republicans passed H.R. 2, the Secure Our Border Act. Chuck Schumer, the senator from New York,
Congressman,
has done absolutely
really quick.
nothing.
Really quickly,
passed
respectfully, though, that House bill, and I understand that the Republicans in the House passed it, it's not going to make it through the Senate. You have this never-ending loop that we hear of blame being passed between the White House to Congress. Secretary Mayorkas wants you guys to do something. You guys want the White House to do something. The White House throws it back to you. I mean, it's just never-ending. Can Republicans and Democrats, do you think this year, come together to put something together that both of you can vote on?
Respectfully, I'll disagree with you here. The Senate Democrats have done absolutely nothing on border security. They've done nothing on immigration. House Republicans passed H.R. 2 months ago. When President Biden came to my district, Westchester County, in April, I specifically said to him, Mr. President, please work with Speaker McCarthy to pass a border security bill. I am someone whose wife is an immigrant. I've been through this system. It is a fundamentally broken system, and it needs to be fixed. I signed on to the Dignity Act, the first bipartisan piece of legislation in over a decade to secure our border and reform our broken immigration system.
The left doesn't want that,
though. If we don't deal
though.
with the border first, we're never going to get anywhere. And you are seeing cities like New York have been overwhelmed after years of having a sanctuary city policy. They didn't give one iota about what was happening at the southern border. And now that it is on their doorstep, they are melting down because they can't handle the influx. So the deputy mayor was spot on. We need to deal with the border first. And Chuck Schumer, who is the Senate Majority Leader, who represents New York, needs to get off his keister, work with the Speaker, and actually pass a bill through the Senate that we can all pass and the president can sign into law so we can actually solve the border crisis once and for all.
Well, the pressure on Schumer might get ratcheted up quite a bit. And you're here doing that, but Democrats are doing that too. Mike Lawler, Congressman from New York, thank you so much for your time today. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was asked, what about you? Right? Because she's usually pretty vocal. She said, well, this about going to the border, she says, is something we're actively planning on. What I have done is tours of our New York area facilities. Right now, this crisis is in our own backyard. And we have toured the Roosevelt Hotel. And I think it's very important for us to, especially to my constituents who are demanding accountability on this, to look at that front line that is right here in New York City. But where does she think the front line's coming from? Obviously. Nicole Maliotakis, the congresswoman from Staten Island, said, we didn't vote for your policies. We should not be subjected to your policies. We're going to keep on turning out. Let Staten Island secede. So it is getting heated here in New York.
Yeah. Wow. And at the end of the day, look, I think Americans, no matter where you stand on either side, it's really not a partisan issue. Everybody wants the border to be fixed. Everybody wants, the border to be secure and our immigration system to eventually be reformed. I think everyone wants that. Don't think it's going to happen this year.
I'm Steve Doocy.
No, definitely is not going to happen this year. It's interesting. AOC finally kind of like indirectly said, hey, there's actually a border crisis. It's kind of interesting she said that. She didn't say it directly because she can't, because she's weak and spineless, so she couldn't come out and just say, hey, we really need to fix the border. She says it's a crisis in our backyard. Yeah. What do you think it's going to lead to? When they enacted these policies and they championed these policies, all these people on the left in these big cities, I think they just thought everyone was just going to stay in Arizona and Texas. And then Greg Abbott's like, nope, we're sending them up there to you. You guys want to be a sanctuary city? You can take care of them. And now look at it's backfiring. Good on Greg Abbott. Good on Ron DeSantis. Anyone who's sending them to these cities because we can't handle it. They can't handle it. Well, I mean, New York City, 10 million people. I live in Austin, the capital of Texas. You want to send people to here? We're a city of 2 million in the metro, 1 million just in the Austin proper. It's like we can't fund this stuff. The roads here are out of control. You know, we have to deal with flooding and all droughts and all this stuff that we have to pay for. And again, there's stuff in Austin. A lot of the infrastructure, the roads and stuff, they really need to get repaired. So, but then you want us to pay for migrants also? It's crazy. New York even wants to do this. It's just leftist policies now are just crazy. They're like, okay, we'll just pay for all these migrants, and then your infrastructure's falling apart. And it's like, wait, whoops. This is what we have to do. It's just like, why? You couldn't just be like, we're not a sanctuary city. If you want to come to America legally. And that's how it's always been. That's what they used to say. Now the last like 5-10 years, all these leftists are like, no. We have to not build the wall. We have to have open borders and all this stuff. It's like, man, it's crazy. Obama campaigned on securing the borders in 2008, and I think also in 2012. Then Trump's just like, build the wall, said the same thing, and now everyone's like, no, we don't want to build a wall, and now you have to pay for it. It's dumb. And then the citizens, I was saying this before about Chicago, the black community there is just turning on the left because there's all these homeless people in their communities, all these homeless migrants. All of the money they got, the surplus, I assume from COVID, they just spent it all in a month. All of that money gone in a month. I bet you I haven't been into Chicago in a very long time, like 10 years. But their infrastructure probably is also in need of repair. But they're spending it all on migrants who crossed illegally. And said, like they said in this video, 75% of them are like ruled not to even be legitimate asylum seekers, and I guess they get deported. So 75% of this money shouldn't even be being spent. It's insane. But I'll leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. Strong Idalia wins rip Florida Billboard during live TV report. Here's a clip.
And Gabe, specifically where you are in Perry, it may not be a huge concern when it comes to storm surge, but you have the strong winds, you have the rain, and tornadoes
the winds are insane.
A huge threat up and down the coast right now, right?
Could you imagine you're in a hurricane and now you have to deal with tornadoes on top of it? So wild.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, at last check, there were at least 3 tornado warnings really throughout the state. I'll leave it to Bill Cairns and the other meteorologists to give the latest update on that. But yeah, in any type of hurricane like this, there could be isolated tornadoes that really pop up. Now, just to give you an idea of the conditions we're taking, the preparations we're taking to stay safe, this hotel, again, we just lost power. Hold on, and here we're getting a really strong.
It's crazy. These reporters go out in this. Everyone gets evacuated, and they're just like, oh, chill.
The team is right next to a concrete wall, and if things get too dangerous here, we can go right inside. There's other members of the media here. There's some local residents here who evacuated their homes but decided to ride it out in this hotel. And you can see right there, Joe, I'm going to move inside a little bit. We just saw this billboard ripping off right here. Wow.
That is insane. Look how many ties it had on it, too.
Right here. We're already starting to see that damage. This billboard is about to come down. We're right now under an awning here. We're covered. And, you know, if this thing does go start flying, we can get inside really easily. But you're looking at that live picture right now.
That thing being wet, it's so big. That could definitely hurt you.
Really picking up here and starting to take down some property. Power lines are nearby. We're at a safe distance. But again, we're watching that very closely as Idalia comes on shore. This is the winds we expect to pick up over the next hour or so. Joe and Savannah.
All right, Gabe and his team, veterans of covering hurricanes. We know they are doing their best to stay safe, while also showing us some of these amazing pictures as Idalia makes its way toward land, not too far from Perry.
It's like, this is my 30-second hurricane. I'm a veteran. Yeah, it's crazy how people go out in that. But yeah, it's crazy. Luckily, most people evacuated. So this was yesterday, these footage. The couple of segments I showed today, this was yesterday morning, and now it's like, what, 7 Central? Yeah, 7:24 Central, and this happened at about 7:30 Central, like, so 36 hours ago, and the death toll, as far as I was reading a few hours ago anyway, was 0, so that's great. You know, people evacuated, and it was a crazy hurricane, but it seems like everyone stayed safe, so that is tremendous. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Mitch McConnell freezes again during an event. He needs to retire. Here's a clip.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell speaking at an event in Covington, Kentucky earlier this afternoon, appearing to freeze again when asked a question. Look here.
What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
He just breaks.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
Yes.
Oh, man.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute.
That is not good.
Benny.
say so. Come with us. Okay.
Yeah, this is the second time something like this has happened in a very public setting in just the past month. You'll remember McConnell freezing during a press conference on Capitol Hill in late July. His office says Leader McConnell felt momentarily lightheaded.
He needs to retire.
And paused during his press conference today. And an aide tells Fox News that the senator will be consulting a doctor before his next event.
I went on Brian Kilmeade.
Oh, jeez. Oh, he didn't do that after last time? He froze up last month. He didn't consult a doctor. This guy needs to retire. It's like Feinstein. What's that guy's name? The tall, bald guy. I don't know. I'm blanking on his name. But that guy, Fetterman. Yeah, Fetterman. These people, why are you're trying to run people's lives in the government and you can't even run your own because you're falling apart? Why are they so insistent in staying in government politics? Remember, like when they were talking about the founding fathers, they wanted a situation where the people they'd have their career, they would go into government for a few years to help the country and then go back to their career. That is the opposite of this type of stuff. Like they're so career politician, like it's way past their time that they should be in there. But still, this guy's just still in there trying to hold on, and he's just getting, it's crazy. He's the guy trying to push for laws and everything. He's one of the top people in Congress, and this is what's happening to him. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of his policies. I wish him the best and everything, but get out of this job and go rest. Go retire, spend time with your family. And this is going to sound dark, but when you still have time left, right, go and spend that time with your family. Because you're doing this type of stuff, and you're like Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, why didn't I bring him up earlier? He's another example. It's like, what are people doing? You're up and you have so much power over everyone's lives, and you don't even have power over yourself. It's insane. But I will leave that there. Let's move on to the next story. New poll predicts Trump 2024 landslide. Sorry. New poll predicts Trump 2024 landslide. Why am I messing up so much right now? Sorry about that. New poll predicts tongue twister, I swear. New poll predicts Trump 2024 landslide. Democrats plan to. Wow. This is really weird. This one's a hard one for me for some reason. New poll predicts Trump 2024 landslide. Democrats plan to cheat by removing Trump from the ballot. Here's a clip.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
I got it right. Now I have the wrong story.
Covington.
Falling apart all of a sudden. My apologies. What is going on? All right, let's try this one more time. New poll predicts Trump 2024 landslide. Democrats plan to cheat by removing Trump from the ballot. Here's a clip.
Let's be real. Nobody knows what is going to happen in 2024. Donald Trump faces dozens, nearly 100 indictments. He may have his name removed from the ballot. We have no idea where this goes. The economy could change. It could crash. Student loan debt is about to kick back in what, like a couple weeks? The economy could take a major hit. Biden could crash. And it's possible that Donald Trump does win in 2024 with a sizable margin. We have this story from Newsmax. McLaughlin poll. Trump beats Biden in electoral landslide. Aha, there it is. Now hold on there a minute. They're not saying a landslide. They're saying electoral landslide. Understand what that means.
Same thing.
They are not saying that Donald Trump will garner the majority of the population. They're not saying that he will have 80 million votes. They're saying that he's going to win the Electoral College by a substantial margin. Now, back in 2016, everybody said Trump, it was a landslide. They were cheering for him because he won by like 70 electoral votes or something. Or maybe that's over the top. Completely wrong. He won by a decent margin in the Electoral College, but his actual vote margin was only like 70,000 votes. He barely won the states that he did, which put him over the top. What will likely happen as of right now? Let me just stress, my friends, according to the current polling data that we have, if the election were held today, Trump has a very good chance of winning. In fact, looking at how the polls have been skewed, if we are basing this off of the merits and polling opinion, the opinion of likely voters, Donald Trump would win today in all likelihood. However, we're a year and some months out. So who knows what will happen from now till then? Ballot harvesting plays a much bigger role than just convincing people to vote. And we don't know what's up with the polls. The polls have been wrong. And if you take a look at the polling data over the past couple of months, it's all over the place. So really, we are in uncharted territory. And there's a bigger question of what does it mean to actually win an election? Does winning mean that you've convinced more people to vote for you? Or does it mean that come January, you place your hand on that Bible and they say you are the president? In which case, we have no idea what's going to happen. I do think this polling data is actually very, very interesting because McLaughlin in one poll has Trump up 10 points over Biden, which seems I'm sorry, 10 points over Harris. And over Biden, a couple of points. Obviously, with Kamala Harris, that makes a lot of sense. But it's interesting to see that the McLaughlin polls they put out show Trump decisively winning. There are many other polls over the past few months which show the same thing. And right now, in the Real Clear Politics average, Donald Trump is up Joe Biden is up 0.8%. Assuming there is a bias, Trump could actually win. 0.8% is not enough. The Democrats actually need around 7% advantage for a guaranteed victory. Because like I said, Trump is trying to win in key states, not in the general vote. So when they poll likely voters and you see nationally that Joe Biden is doing well by, he's up by like 0.8, what does that mean for the actual states Trump is trying to win?
Right. Who cares if California?
We may once again see a popular vote for the Democrat,
They're
but an
skewing
electoral
towards
vote
Biden.
for the Republican. However, I think without lockdowns, which they may be bringing back, Democrats don't stand a chance. Ballot harvesting only goes so far. So what are they trying to do? Outright remove Trump from the ballot in states where he needs to win. And that's it. Game over. If these Secretary of States unilaterally remove Trump's name from the ballot in, say, Wisconsin, it's over. Seriously, it's over. There won't be an election. They'll call it an election, just like North Korea calls their elections, but it's not an election. They'll say legally there is. But everyone will know in their heart of hearts there was not. Democrats will lie and say, but Trump's a criminal. Never Trump or DeSantis supporters will say, well, it's your fault for nominating a criminal. Despite the fact it is an unprecedented extra legal move. Would likely lose at the Supreme Court. But like I said, don't be surprised if come October of next year, they remove Trump's name from the ballot unilaterally and then say, sue us. Good luck. Here's the current story we have
Sounds
from
like chaos.
They say, after Georgia's indictment of Donald Trump, our new national poll shows he not only beats Biden, but he would defeat the current president in an electoral landslide. The McLaughlin National Survey finds Trump leads Biden 47-43, up 2 points this month alone. Even more remarkable, with our voter model for this poll, we assigned 4 more points of Biden 2020 voters than Trump voters. This means, looking to 2024, there is an 8-point turnaround in favor of Trump from the 2020 election. Biden voters are switching to Trump. But here's the really big news. In the key battleground states, Trump leads Biden 49-41. If the election was today, Trump would defeat Biden in an electoral landslide. Our poll and other national surveys are confirming a huge turnaround for Trump. I always want to stress the cultural context or the contemporary context. You may find, and you will likely find, clips of this video circulating just before the election or just after or whatever, because we don't know what's going to happen. Watch out for the propaganda. What they will do is they will strip the context from today, hindsight being 2020, and then apply predictions based on this information to future information for which we could not accurately predict. That is to say, we have no idea what's going to happen. Data today is favorable for Trump. We will see. But don't be surprised if in a year they play a bunch of videos of a bunch of different people, because they've done this to me and you all know it, where they strip out the context of, say, like Moody's analytics on the economy, which predicted a possible Trump landslide, and then say, haha, he was wrong. Well, sure. I can only base the information at the current, off the current. Well,
I'll take that.
NBC
they could say
News
I'm wrong.
says
I don't
it
care.
hath begun. Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes said Tuesday that his office is figuring out how to handle potential complaints over whether former President Trump should be disqualified from the ballot. The issue centers on the 14th Amendment, blah, blah. Everyone knows this. Moving on. We have to have a final certification of eligible candidates for the primary ballot by December 14th for Arizona's presidential preference election.
If you don't know it, just to be clear, the 14th Amendment, they're saying it was an insurrection. January 6th, they obviously set all that up. They knew there was going to be a protest at the Capitol, so they're like, okay, we're going to let people in, call it an insurrection, and then Trump will be ineligible because of the 14th Amendment.
As a Democrat elected last year told NBC News. And because this will ultimately end up in court, we are taking this very seriously. New Hampshire Secretary of State David Scanlon is dealing with the same question. We need to run an election. We need to know who is eligible, and this is of incredible national interest. Now, I will say, don't be surprised if just before the primary, they do the same thing to make sure that it's a Ron DeSantis or Vivek Ramaswamy who wins the Republican nomination. And then you will get a split Republican vote, people who go in and they'll check the box for whoever is there, and those who will just vote Democrat, those who will write in Donald Trump. If these are the three categories, Democrats win. Which is why I believe that all Republicans should drop out of the race. Said it before, I'll say it again. I agree with Donald Trump. He said all these Republicans should drop out because then it's Trump no matter what. And they can't play these dirty games in the primary. Now, of course, they're going to argue, the never-Trumpers, no, DeSantis, and they're going to cry and whinge and burn DeSantis to the ground. It's unfortunate, but true. And that's DeSantis' own fault. He has courted these really awful people, and so be it. I do not believe DeSantis can win because his current campaign strategy is to spit in the face of anyone who disagrees.
That's weird.
Look, if you want to win an election, you have to win over people.
I liked DeSantis until he started running.
That's why Vivek Ramaswamy is soaring.
I still kind of like DeSantis, don't get me wrong, but I definitely don't think he should have ran. It's disloyal. He's not going to be able to beat Trump. And yeah, now his campaign strategy is awful.
In the polls. He is running the campaign DeSantis should have run. And now you've got Trump supporters cheering for Vivek, even though Vivek needs to drop out. No, I know. A lot of people are 100% for Vivek, don't like Trump. All due respect, I get it, because I'm a big Vivek fan as well. I don't want Vivek to drop out. I want him to win, to be completely honest. I think he's fantastic. All the smears that are coming out, calling him names, saying he was a shill. They're posting videos from Hardball. He's an old clip where he appeared on a similar show at a later date from Pete Buttigieg. And I'm like, I don't care about that, dude. Have a conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy, and you'll get it. Is the dude playing politics very well? Of course he is. He's really, really good at what he does. But you have a real conversation with the guy, and he's quick. I believe him. I certainly don't believe everything he says about everything because a lot of it's politicking. Still. Everyone does it. Yeah, I get it. Do I think he is the savior sent from?
I liked him a lot until you said that he would pretty much without question he would have certified the 2020 election, without further investigation. And that kind of was just like, for me, I was like, you didn't want to investigate first and then certified it if the states would have recertified. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that answer. He will look. I'll tell you what really gets me is one. He tells the story of what gets him into this. A lot of it is he was personally slighted by woke activists who targeted his company, and now he's pissed off. But when he said, he was like, he's sitting here talking to me on the Culture War podcast, and he's like, I don't know, they're probably going to get mad at me for saying this, but, talking about his campaign people, his advisors. But he's like, we got to have some kind of like civic requirement for voting. We just have to. And I'm like, you're going to sacrifice the youth vote because you're going to say something that needs to be said, something many of us have been talking about. What is it? Service guarantee citizenship or something to that effect. I don't know about it.
Yeah, I like the stuff he said about the 9/11 Commission report.
So I need that these guys talk about this, which I guess it's a good conversation to have, but we need to have a civil test in order to vote when you don't even need ID for the left. It's just like, can't we just agree on let's secure the elections and make sure all voter rolls are cleared of deceased people and make sure all the votes are real, and then we can start talking about if you need a civic test. It's just like, even civic test or not, it's like people are voting that aren't even alive anymore and stuff like that. It's just like, can we handle that? It's like the front line of the issue. Can we get that in check, and then we could go talk about civic tests and whatever?
Lied about Saudi involvement. This dude's doing things you're not supposed to do in a political campaign. You look at Ron DeSantis, and he's playing it like every other establishment shill.
Yep.
So here's what I mean to say.
What a surprise.
with all due respect to DeSantis running, he's an excellent governor in Florida and would absolutely mean it. These guys need to drop out if the Democrats play this game. For now, the time being, let's see where this goes. But I got to be honest. I would not be surprised if
the reason why I say is he might still be a good governor. He seemed like he handled the hurricane pretty well, but has his time split between Florida and his campaign that he most likely isn't going to win. So instead of focusing 100% on Florida, now he's focusing on his campaign. I saw this one guy a couple months back saying he voted for DeSantis to have 4 more years, not 2 more. And then I like I was saying in that video when I covered it, he's not even going to give him 2 years like undivided attention if he wins. If he wins in 2024, he only gave him a few months of undivided attention and then 2 years of half attention and then just nothing else. I think a lot of Floridians aren't going to like him in the next election in 2026 because hey, you kind of just abandoned us. But I guess we'll see.
Ramaswamy does drop out specifically in support of Trump. He is playing this masterfully. He knows he can't defeat Trump in a primary. So when the Democrats make the move to pull his name off the primary ballot, I would not be surprised if Vivek comes out and says, I'm standing down.
I could see that too.
I believe that I'd be the right man for the job.
And most of this, I think what Vivek is doing is getting publicity, which is working. So next election, if he gets VP this time, everyone's going to know who he is because of that and because of his campaigning. And then in 2028, he's pretty much a shoo-in for the Republican nomination.
We all can see the writing on the wall. We know that even with the gains we've made in the polls, Donald Trump is the clear frontrunner, and it's time to acknowledge this. But the moves being made by the Democrats and these unilateral decisions are disruptive to our process. And if they seek to remove Trump's name and create a conflict within the Republican Party, we lose. I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see. Smartest play. Boost his profile, puts him in the running for VP. He said he doesn't want to be VP, but it doesn't matter. Being in the running, building that profile, he is hitting the nail on the head with the hammer. We'll see. So this is what they're trying to do. You've got New Hampshire, you've got Arizona, you've got Florida. They could remove his name. We'll see. Let's take a look at the polls. It is funny because we're like a year and a half out, but it has begun. The August 23rd McLaughlin and Associates poll are insane. Trump up 4 points in one poll against Kamala Harris up 10 points. Yikes, they should not have ran her. And then we have 2 more up against Biden +1, up against Biden again +1. I think it's important to point out the aggregates. So if you take a look then at the public policy polling, New Mexico Political Report, general election in New Mexico, you have Biden up 6 and 8 points in New Mexico. In the general election from Ipsos, Trump is up 6 points over Biden. This is insane. General election, August 26, Emerson, Harris X. Harris has Biden up 1. Trump is up 2. Trump is up 5 with Emerson. Amazing. Big Village runs 4 polls. In 1, Trump is up 4. In 1, Trump is tied. In 2 more, Biden has the lead. Morning Consult has Biden in the lead. As of right now, Trump is actually dominating massively in some of these polls.
That's insane. And I see him just going up more. If they try to put him in jail, especially, he's going to get more support based on what we've seen before. And the economy is most likely just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So by the time the election actually comes along, people are going to be like, we need something different.
Putting Trump up 6 points.
And immigration just keeps getting worse, too. 50,000 people crossing the border every week. Now all these people in major cities, like black community in Chicago and New York, they're slowly turning. And that's the worse it gets, the more people are going to turn. The more people are going to turn, and it's just going to be better for Trump.
Polls are skewing in favor of Democrats. This is apocalyptic news. But
their policies are backfiring.
Things will change. Do not bet all your marbles on what we're seeing today.
Definitely not.
Here's the general election, Trump versus Biden. Right now, the aggregate from the RCP, from our Real Clear Politics, is Biden up 0.8%. We take a look at all the polling data going way back.
Keep pushing. If you're like a Trump supporter or just don't like Biden. So the thing with me is I like Trump. But I mean, there's other candidates I'd like more, like Dave Smith and stuff. But I think Trump needs to win this election. All the indictments and everything against him. You know what I mean? But even if you're just against Biden and you're not the biggest fan of Trump, like, look at what's going on with the country, and you got to admit Trump's policies were great. I think even people in the left, that's why so many people are going to the right. Well, a big part of it is people realize, like, okay, the leftist policies just don't work. Even if you don't like Trump in particular, like right-wing policies, you know, if people, they're not even really right-wing policies. Like on the border, like I said, was saying in an earlier segment, Obama, he campaigned in 2008 for more border security. Did he actually follow through with it? Now that's debatable. But you could tell that people on both sides liked it. That's why he was saying that. It resonated with everyone. Now it's just like, hey, unless you want an open border, you're on the right now, I guess. And they just pushed everyone towards that. And then those policies, they work. That's why everyone supports them, where the majority of people support them.
Trump's doing ridiculously well, man.
Yep, makes sense.
Take a look at this going back through from last year until now. The Biden administration is floundering. And while there are many polls that show him in the lead, Trump has too many. Trump should not be doing this well. So here we are. It seems like right now, if the election were held today, Donald Trump wins.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you he can't win. And boy, man, you know, part of me, I feel really bad for Ron DeSantis. They had that photo, that video clip. There's two clips that came out of the GOP debate, the lesser known GOP debate. The first is where, when asked, they said, if Donald Trump is convicted, how many of you will still support him? Vivek, boom, no questions asked. Of course, this is political persecution.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis then looks right, looks left, and then raises his hand halfway.
Maybe.
But then you had that viral clip of Ron making a statement and then smiling, wincing, really going like, and it looks really weak. And I'm just like, I feel bad for this guy.
Yeah. And then when Trump got indicted last week and DeSantis was at a golf course and the reporters asked him, he's like, yeah, that's his. He basically is like, hey, that's his problem. I'd much rather be on a golf course. It's like, ooh. No support for Trump at all. And that's hurting him a lot. Like Vivek, he's like, okay, I'll pardon Trump. And then Ron DeSantis is like, I guess I'll look into it. It's like, bro, you should really be like, be behind. He got you elected. Just no loyalty from him.
I think it's like stressful. Not a place you want to be, man. I would never want to be in this position. And I feel like what probably happened with Ron is that he was doing so well in the polls and the prediction market. All of these powerful interests are like, you must run. They're not going to let Trump win. You have to do it. And he's like, okay, fine, I guess. Let's go. The dude clearly doesn't have the energy for this. And his surrogates, and his supporters and his campaign staff and his communication staff. Probably the worst I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's
only a handful of presidential election cycles, but woo, boy. You take a look at his comms team, and he may as well have gone to like a local Boy Scout troop of 12-year-old boys and said, you guys figure it out because you'll probably do better than what I got.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ron.
Yeah, they probably
If you don't fire the
Not
people
even a
running
joke.
your communications, you deserve to lose. Maybe that's
It's
what
too
what he
late.
really wants.
He should have
Fine, I
fired him
guess.
already.
But we will carry on. Interactive poll says new national poll from YouGov. Trump is up by 1 point. A +4 gain, and Biden drops by 1 point change versus July 25th. For the GOP presidential primary, you've got Trump at 52%, DeSantis at 16, Ramaswamy at 6. Should be interesting. Now, one big point that's coming up a lot. I talked about it the other day, saying Trump can't lose if, and it's a big if, this poll is true. Fox News ran a poll showing that Joe Biden has 61% of the black vote and Donald Trump has 20%. And I'm like, I'm hard pressed to believe it. But if that is true, Trump can't lose. Rob Smith made a video where he just said, it's a pipe dream. Never going to happen. And he says, anyone telling you the black vote will be 20 to 25% for Republicans in 24 is not being honest. In fact, they're lying. They lie to you about a lot of things. There's only one of them. Let's break this down. Mike Cernovich says, great video. I did believe Trump was going to do 15% or more. 2020 was the all in on the issue. I was surprised and disappointed. Yeah, Trump got around like 8. I think was it like 8 to 11 or something like that?
It was 8.
There's no
according
credible
to
or
the
logical
poll.
response to your video. There absolutely is. There really is. Rob Smith says, I'm not expecting logic or reason, but I'm expecting a lot of personal attacks and emotion. Anyways, I stumped for Trump. I was on the jets going to events. I was in it, and blacks didn't show up. It was disappointing, instead of doing a post-mortem on why it happened, he says, why it happened, we get lies and people repeating the same failure we just saw. It's Twilight Zone-ish. Mike Cernovich says, we got to realize most of these Twitter people don't leave their houses much. They go to
I think it's interesting because I see what this guy is saying about like black voters not going for Trump. But like I've said in other videos and everything, the migrant policy is backfiring so hard on the left. I saw a few months ago black people, they were at a city council meeting, and the one guy has a build the wall sign. And I don't necessarily know if he's like a Trump supporter per se, right? But if Trump's like build the wall and Biden's like don't build the wall, who do you think they're going to vote for? The black community in New York and in Chicago, they're sick of this. The migrants are overrunning their neighborhoods and they're sick of it. So even if they're not Trump supporters, they're still going to vote for Trump.
Events with rich white people, who is fresh and fit, had me laughing. I bet 90% of people telling you about black culture don't even know what Coachella is. Agreed. I stepped back from all of this for a minute because I realized that I was becoming divorced from the culture and spending too much time on Twitter, cable news sets, and GOP influencer functions. That is not the real world. I completely agree, but I do have a response. There is one response. The issue may be not that black voters shift Republican in massive numbers to the point where Republicans are guaranteed a victory. The issue is that black voters may not vote. And I'm not even saying in large numbers. Here's what I want to say to Rob Smith. I think he's right completely, 100%, well, 99%. I do think it's fair to add that there can be a shift, the Kanye West impact. That matters. But it's probably going to be minuscule. I think when you look at the actual data, what you're seeing is young black men may be shifting towards the Republican Party in small numbers, and that causes a shift, but it's not going to be 20% of all black voters. That's why I say that's a big if.
It is.
Like,
20
the idea you can come out and be like, the black community will vote Republican and Democrats have lost. It's guaranteed. Yeah, I don't know about that. But I do think there's a response. I don't think the response is and he points this out. He's saying it doesn't mean you give up on advocating for conservatism in black communities. He says you just got to make sure.
You just got to be realistic.
That you're
That's
being
all
realistic.
he's saying. Yeah.
And I completely agree with him.
Me too.
Now, here's what I'm looking forward to. In this video clip, you have no choice. Trump tells Glenn Beck he will absolutely lock people up if returned to the White House. Forgive me if I don't believe it. But I do think that Trump is more likely to fire people than anybody else. So I'll give him that.
You said in 2016, lock her up. And then when you became president, you said, we don't do that in America. That's just not the right thing to do. That's what they're doing. Do you regret not locking her up? And if you're president again, will you lock people up?
Well, I'll give you an example. The answer is you have no choice because they're doing it to us. I always had such great respect for the office of the president, the presidency, but the office of the president. And I never hit Biden as hard as I could have. And then I heard he was trying to indict me, and it was him that was doing it. I don't think he's sharp enough to think about.
New York Times confirms Joe Biden spoke with Garland and said, do it.
Much. But he was there, and he was probably the one giving the order. But he was, hard to believe that he even thinks about that because he's gone. But then I said, well, they're actually trying to indict me because every one of these indictments is him, including Bragg. Bragg put his top people. I don't know if you know this. He put his top person into the office of the Manhattan District Attorney.
We'll see. I am not entirely convinced Trump will lock anybody up. I do think he wants revenge. I do think he's personally slighted. I do think he's angry. And I do think we see firings. I think he'll reposition people, and he's more likely to do it than anyone else.
Yeah, and I agree. And then he's way more likely to do it last time too. Oops, paused down the wrong thing. Yeah, so I mean I agree. But who knows for sure what he's going to do, but he's more likely to do it now than ever.
Realizing them. I like Vivek. I think he's great. But Trump's got the emotional edge right now. With these indictments, I think he's going to say, okay, we have to do something. It's really just probability, and it's light. So we will see. No guarantees. It's hard to know exactly how this will play out. But I want to highlight the DeSantis campaign. In this tweet from Chris Nelson, I saw this morning. It's really funny because this morning I put out a video where I actually praised Ron DeSantis' response. I'm hearing really great things about what he's doing in Florida, so we'll keep the politics out of it. Good for him. Chris Nelson, I'm going to give you my assumption of this guy.
His
guy
works
is
for
indie reporter, saved by God's grace, updates
DeSantis.
on Ron DeSantis and Florida news. I think this guy's a fake journalist that is running a sock puppet scam for the DeSantis campaign. But let me clarify once again. What I mean is masquerading as an independent reporter, but just being fed talking points by the DeSantis camp to promote Ron DeSantis.
So it
is the worst and most pathetic communications attempt I've seen. Now, I don't know that's true. I'm just saying it's my opinion based on what I'm seeing this person do. Take a look at this. He says, every one of these scumbags, many of whom live in Florida due to Governor Ron DeSantis' COVID policies, have not mentioned a word about Hurricane Idalia for political reasons. Some of them are elected officials. The hell with all of them. Get the hell out of the state. And of course, he mentions Matt Gaetz and, Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake's an Arizona candidate. I think it's funny. And of course, I'm there too. Look at that. Tim Cass. He's saying, why aren't you talking about this particular hurricane? And it's funny. I know he posted it last night. I only saw it this morning because it's starting to get a lot of attention. And it's like so much for my morning video, I guess. Here's what I must say. First, he lied about Matt Gaetz. And I think he lied about a handful of other people.
He probably is lying about all of them.
Just showing, Idalia or whatever. And a lot of these people were talking about the hurricane. They were calling it. Gavin Wax said what likely happened is that the DeSantis campaign gave him the image and said, use this, post it, and go for the attack.
Unbelievable.
I hope Ron DeSantis loses. I want to make sure that's very, very clear for all of you. He's a great governor. Probably the best politician in the country right now.
I don't know about
that.
And
he must lose. I hope his defeat is humiliating. I hope he is mocked handily afterwards. Why? Because he will not fire Christina Pushaw. He will not fire Jeremy Redfern or Brian Griffin. These people who are some of the worst communication
Brian
people
Griffin.
I
How's that guy say
ever
that
seen.
name? It's like Family Guy. It's funny. That's his name.
He won't fire him. And I can imagine the only reason he's keeping them around is because he doesn't want to win. And that's what I'm going to say.
I don't know why.
Ron's a smart, capable guy. I keep asking myself this question. Why won't he fire these people? He wants to lose. Seriously, he wants to lose. He's going to build a big, profile. We don't know where he'll go after this. He doesn't expect to actually defeat Donald Trump. None of his donors probably think that's going to happen if he has any donors left. And so the point is to build profile.
Ben Shapiro and like Dave Rubin and stuff, they're all in for DeSantis. I have a friend who I was having a conversation with him the other day. He thinks DeSantis is going to win. He thinks if Trump goes, my friend thinks that if Trump goes to jail, there's no way he can win. I think the opposite, right? It's like if he goes to jail, he's definitely going to win. And I was like, who would you pull for? He's like, DeSantis. I'm like, DeSantis is not going to win. Maybe Ramaswamy, but DeSantis, no.
Get your little, B tier moment and then step back, write a book, and maybe run for Senate or something like that.
I don't know. He might have just.
But I don't know where he goes after this.
Foot with all this.
With a campaign as flustered and broken as he's running, I can only assume it's because he really does want to lose. That's it. Follow his surrogates and his supporters, and they say things like Trump can't possibly win. And you're like, look at the data. We've gone over the polls. Like, what do you mean Trump can't win? He's likely. He's got the edge right now. I mean, he could lose for sure. And they might cheat. They might pull his name off the ballot. I mean, they're literally cheating. But that's nothing to do with the electoral process. I'm really let down. I'm really bummed. Last year, I was in the bag for DeSantis. He was the guy. Sitting there with the Daily Wire crew being like, this is it. I mean, he's younger. He's got the tact. He's got the policies. He's primed. And then after all of I'll put it this way. The reason why I think he wants to lose is that people like Chris Nelson and, Christina Pushaw attack DeSantis supporters. And it's just like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, it's
what
weird.
Purpose are you doing that? We had Bill Mitchell on the Culture War podcast with Laura Loomer and Kyle Becker. Becker being more middle of the road, liking DeSantis, supporting him a bit and then kind of walking back. Laura Loomer, heavy in the bag. In fact, no one supports Trump more than Laura Loomer. Hands down, no questions asked. And then you had Bill Mitchell, who I'd say probably no one supports DeSantis more. It's a really interesting conversation. When I asked Bill Mitchell why it is that the DeSantis actual staffers are insulting and attacking
Loomer also lives in Florida, which is interesting. She can't stand Trump. I watched her thing on Timcast IRL. I'm sorry, she can't stand DeSantis. She loves Trump. She can't stand DeSantis. She was on there, and she's like, I live in Florida, and she brought up like insurance and stuff. She made some really good points about how everyone thinks that DeSantis is so great, but he definitely has some flaws.
When I'm like middle of the road or even praising DeSantis, he said, yeah, well, Laura Loomer said this about me. And I'm like, what does that have to do with me? There's no answer. There's no answer. Ron DeSantis is either asleep at the wheel, wants to lose, or is incapable of being a leader. And if he can't fire his staff who are running his campaign to the ground, then he deserves to lose. I do not want a man of this weakness to be in the White House. If he can't fire his own failing campaign staff,
he's not going to redo the deep state.
Don't get me wrong. He rehired some through his governor's
office. He fired some because of scapegoating. He scapegoated some people. All those fake AI things that they were promoting and stuff. It turns out from leaked Discord messages that the campaign knew about all of these, and then that started getting traction in some news sources. So he scapegoated these people who made the memes. But obviously the people in top, there was messages from them talking about it. So we know that they knew about it, but he just scapegoated people instead of, firing the top people on the top. He's like, okay, they made the memes. Okay, fire them. But they commissioned it most likely.
But if he can't fire these people, how is he going to fire anyone else? These are the easiest firings to do. To be like, look, you failed your job. You are burning the campaign to the ground. Get out. You think he's going to have an easier time going up against the bureaucrats, the intelligence agencies?
No way.
Get out of here. He's got unilateral authority right now to be like, you out of my office. You suck.
Yep.
Good luck when you're up against the deep state.
Never going to happen.
So it is what it is, man. Hey, man, I could be wrong because a lot of things.
DeSantis ran. He shouldn't have done this. Especially with this campaign manager, like Tim's saying here, he just shows his true colors way before the primary even happened.
Change. And we'll see. Maybe Ron DeSantis finally comes out and says, you were all right. I've got to fire these people, man. Look at this. It's remarkable. Vivek Ramaswamy did put out tweets about the hurricane and praised Ron DeSantis. And they're insulting him. These people are so stupid.
You praise him and then
I hope he loses. Because Matt Gaetz, look at this. They're insinuating Matt Gaetz has said nothing. Matt Gaetz is a Florida rep. He's been tweeting nonstop about the hurricane.
Obviously.
These people are despicable. I hope he loses. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is just crazy. Like how the DeSantis campaign acts. They're just nuts. And Trump's just going to keep going up in the polls with indictments. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. And the one guy, he's saying that the black vote isn't going to be that high. He was all in on Trump in 2020, and the black people just didn't come out. It's way different. 4 years is a long time. It's almost a half a decade. So I think things are changing. And will it be 20%? I obviously don't know. Well, only time will tell. But I could honestly see it being there or a little bit higher. I really could. Call me crazy. But I'm just saying, I have my friends and they're my friends, I have my views, but almost all the black friends I have are going to vote for Trump. So obviously super anecdotal, but I'm just saying, and that was way more than it would have been a few, 5 years ago, probably. Right. So I don't know, but only time will tell. I think Trump's just going to keep going up in the polls, though. He goes to jail. He's going to go way up in the polls. So yeah, everything they're doing is just backfiring on them. But I'll leave that one there. Let's move on to the next story. Even the Washington Post has admitted Biden's lies. Here's a clip.
Fox News alert. The National Archives has just admitted that they have in their possession over 5,000 emails tied to Joe Biden's alias email accounts.
This is crazy.
Joe Biden, as vice president, used 3 different aliases: Robin Ware, Robert L. Peters, J.R.B. Ware. None of these are Biden's Secret Service code names. These are secret email accounts that Joe Biden was using to exchange covert messages with Hunter Biden, other Biden family members, friends, and staffers.
The evidence
and the
just keeps piling up.
librarians at the archives who were salivating to see Trump in prison over a paperwork dispute are stonewalling the release of over 5,000 secret Biden emails.
Of course they
They're
are.
saying sorting through the secret emails will take years. The National Archives,
Just release them.
They have 3,000 employees. It takes less than 15 seconds to read an email, so you do the math. Another cover-up. And Joe Biden's lawyers will have Sharpies, and they get to redact what they consider private or privileged. Hunter, I'm flying to Ukraine tomorrow. Call me about the prosecutor we were talking about. Zzt, redacted. There's a good chance we won't see most of these emails for years, which is why House Republicans need to open an impeachment inquiry immediately. So how do we find out about these secret emails? The laptop, obviously. Here's one from a White House staffer to Robert L. Peters, Joe Biden. CCing Hunter, quote, boss, 8:45 a.m. prep for 9 a.m. phone call with Ukrainian President Poroshenko.
Oh.
Then we're off to Rhode Island for infrastructure event, and then Wilmington for UDEL commencement. So why was White House staff CCing Hunter about Vice President Joe Biden's phone call with the Ukrainian president?
Oh,
why would Hunter need to know that?
The owners of Burisma were squeezing Hunter Biden to call Washington to get help. Along this same time period, we found a pseudonym where he copied Hunter Biden, and it would lead one to believe that this was Joe Biden's way of copying Hunter Biden to say, okay, send it to the Burisma owners and tell them help is on the way. And 5 days later, Joe Biden flew to Ukraine to begin the process of firing the prosecutor.
Hunter was also using his dad's secret email address to get his cronies government jobs. Here's one. Before you fill the position, please talk to me. McGrail very much wants to serve as detail for Treasury. Joe Biden's alias responds, call me right away.
Wow.
Don't worry.
Wow.
The crony got the job. There could even be as many as 6 Biden alias email accounts. One of his personal favorites, 67 Stingray. You know, the car that he almost lost in the kitchen fire that almost killed his cat? That one.
Insane.
And the same time Joe Biden was using secret alias email accounts to talk business with Hunter, Joe Biden was flying Hunter to at least 15 other countries on Air Force Two. We paid for that.
Yep. Taxpayers paid
Hunter
for it.
Conducted business. What do you call secret flights, secret email addresses, burner phones, shell companies, offshore accounts, client dinners and phone calls, 150 suspicious activity reports, and $20 million of foreign money funneled into 10 different Biden family bank accounts? Well, a Biden business partner called it selling the Biden brand. And the White House won't say whether it's still happening.
We know that from a Hunter Biden associate now that he sold the appearance of access to then Vice President Biden. Are you confident that he has stopped doing that?
That is a question for Hunter Biden.
If somebody is selling the appearance of access to the White House,
she won't even answer.
No, that is your I don't know how you're perceiving that.
Devin Archer
perspective. You don't know
he and
that
Hunter
word.
Biden tried to profit off the Biden brand. What is the Biden brand?
I'm not going to get into it from here. I'm not going to get into it from here. We're going to move on.
So the White House isn't going to
She's
get
just smiling.
into whether the White House is for sale. Got it. Jonathan Turley is a George Washington law professor and a Fox News contributor.
Not a good look.
So, Professor, when someone is conducting business in secret, then getting caught, and then lying about it, does that make you more or less suspicious?
Well, there's plenty of reason to be suspicious, including the fact that the president appears to have been lying to the American people, even during the presidential campaign. Even the Washington Post has said that it's untrue what the president has said, that indeed his son made money in China. And we also know that Joe Biden was aware of these dealings. And one of the things that Archer said after his interview with Congress was that it was patently false that Joe Biden didn't know about their business.
Wow.
And you also see a change in the media. Now the media is willing to accept that indeed Hunter Biden was running an influence peddling operation. But they insist that he was just selling the illusion of influence and access.
What?
Well, how do we know that? Do you just assume that? These emails could go a long way to determining what was a deliverable and whether it went beyond.
It's still not illegal? The illusion? So he's like, okay, I'm just going to pretend and scam everyone out of their money and be like, well, I don't have influence over my dad, but I'm going to pretend and I'm going to scam him, and that's better. I mean, it's better in a way because then Joe Biden's not involved, I guess, but Hunter's still. Shouldn't they be against Hunter still? But no, he's a recovering drug addict. They don't care.
An illusion.
Well, wealthy foreign nationals don't usually continue to pay millions of dollars over 8 years for an illusion.
I know.
It's usually not how
True.
businessmen make all of those millions of dollars. I want to play some new sound from MSNBC. There seems to be a new conspiracy theory that we've put our finger on. Listen to Rachel Maddow.
The election means one of two things, if this is the way he's going to approach it. Either he loses the election and he goes to prison, or he wins the election, he doesn't go to prison, and is that life that he gets to be president? Will we keep having more elections or no? If every election is a new opportunity for him to go to prison, do you think he allows us to have new elections?
It's quite a comparison.
So as a preeminent constitutional scholar, do you see any warning signs that if Donald Trump is reelected, we're canceling future elections until eternity?
They were saying this before the
bizarre
2020
about that
election.
Clip is that there is, of course, other options. One is that Trump could be acquitted. You could have a hung jury. The cases could be thrown out on constitutional grounds. All of those, at least, are options that are worth mentioning for appearance's sake.
But
if
there's
you're
only
a nation
two,
committed to the
according to
rule
her.
of law. Now, what is also missing in all of this is this lack of faith in our system. You know, we did have a terrible, terrible attack on the Capitol on January 6th, but the system worked. The courts remained firm all the way up to the certification and afterwards. Our system held together. And I always find it strange, this crisis of faith that people have. We have a fantastic constitutional system in this country. We've been through a lot. And so having that type of hyperbolic language is not helping. I mean, we need to remain unified in the common article of faith that we have, which is the Constitution. And that system has worked and will continue to work.
If Donald Trump is convicted of any of these charges in court and his appeals are exhausted, do you see any possibility that a judge in the United States is going to throw a former president who's probably going to be 80 years old in prison?
Well, it depends on the crime, and it also depends on the timing. President Trump could indeed pardon himself for federal crimes. For the state crimes, it could create some serious complications. The court would first have to sentence him to jail, but then federal courts may get involved to the extent that that would interfere with presidential functions. We obviously have not.
Yeah, and like I always talk about, the Secret Service and the Constitution, that would the Secret Service supersedes everything. So if he goes, they can't just send him to a normal prison without bringing Secret Service. The Secret Service would never allow that. And they supersede all jurisdictions. So it's just like, how would that ever work? It would have to just be like house arrest or something.
And down that road, but we have to look towards it, and it's going to be a messy situation. The courts are going to have to deal with it, but there's a lot of road between now and then. I mean, it's still not clear what trials could occur before the election. It's also not clear if convictions that were secured would be upheld when they're challenged.
They probably wouldn't be.
It probably is going to be difficult to bring all of these threshold challenges to the Court of Appeals before trial. Judges tend to say that you should get a verdict first and then appeal. But there are substantial constitutional questions that still have to be worked out. So all the hyperbolic language aside, there's a lot of constitutional legal questions that have to be resolved before we reach that point.
All right, Professor, thank you for going to law school so I didn't have to.
I know, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey,
it's really interesting. Everyone is admitting, like, even Washington Post is like publishing this type of stuff now. It's wild, you know, and they just keep going after Trump, and they don't want to go after Biden. They don't want to go after Hunter Biden. They just want to pretend, oh, no, we're not. It's not partisan. It's not partisan at all. It's clearly partisan. And this stuff that they're going after Trump for, it's not going to even work. I don't think that even the stuff that they just going to get Joe Biden out of power. I mean, I don't think he'll go to jail either, you know, because of the Secret Service thing I just brought up. He might get house arrest in like his Delaware mansion. That would be the easiest. right? But then like actually trying to get him into like a prison, and maybe you have to build his own prison. But what a waste that would be. And have the Secret Service around him, it'd be better for house arrest, I guess. I've heard other people bring this up too, but I think I brought it up first. But before I saw people in the media occasionally bringing it up. But it's just like, how are you going to send anyone to prison when the Secret Service supersedes everything? They're going to not be happy with it. They're like, I'm not going to be in prison. And it's like logistically trying to keep the former president safe when they're in prison. It's not going to happen, right? But yeah, get Joe Biden out of power, and all this stuff against Trump is obviously nonsense. But yeah, it would be interesting to have more investigations into Biden, and I definitely think they need to happen. But I'm going to leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. Hunter Biden emails reportedly reveal plan to shut down Burisma probe. Here's a clip.
That's right. Now a little news this morning. And this is new. Email, apparently from Hunter Biden's laptop, revealing that he helped coordinate a plan to stop investigations into that Ukrainian gas company. You ever heard of Burisma? That's what we're talking about.
This, as a former Ukrainian prosecutor, says the company was undoubtedly engaging in illegal activities.
And they were maneuvering to fire Shokin. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with more. Lucas.
Good morning, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian. That's right. Those emails claim Hunter Biden orchestrated a plan to shut down Viktor Shokin's investigation of Burisma. Here's one email from a Burisma executive. Quote, the scope of work should also include organization of a visit of a number of widely recognized and influential current and or former U.S. policymakers to Ukraine in November, aiming to conduct meetings with and bring positive signal message and support on Nikolay's issue to the Ukrainian top officials above, with the ultimate purpose to close down for any cases pursuits against Nikolay in Ukraine. Now, here's Viktor Shokin's interview with you, Brian.
I have no doubt that there were illegal activities engaged in by Burisma. The founder and CEO of Burisma started bringing in people who could provide protection for him. Hunter Biden was among them. But my firm personal conviction is that, yes, this was the case. They were being bribed.
And the result was also that Shokin was fired as Ukraine's top prosecutor. Of course, he claims then Vice President Joe Biden was behind it, guys. And I asked President Biden when we returned to the White House on Saturday about Viktor Shokin and these allegations that he bribed him when he was vice president. Joe Biden ignored those questions, guys.
Of course he did.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to try to continue to ignore it, but it's amazing what the Daily Mail was able to push forward yesterday. This story is moving quick. Thanks so much, Lucas. Appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Yeah, the emails just keep piling up. Or I'm sorry, the evidence just keeps piling up. And now we have these emails. Oh, man, this is hitting the Bidens hard. It's crazy. Almost all of this is because Hunter Biden was a crackhead and left a broken laptop at a repair shop. Like I said in a recent video, it makes you really wonder. I don't think this is true, but it makes you wonder, did he just do this on purpose? Hunter Biden, I doubt it. He's so corrupt. But it's like he had every email, every screenshot from his iPhone. Like, who does that? I don't know. Maybe he was on iCloud, or I think it was a PC, though. Was it in Windows? Why does he have all of this stuff on his laptop just backed up? And that's what he just gives all of the evidence for all this years of corruption to a repair shop and leaves it there. It's so insane. So now it's all just coming back to bite them, and rightfully so. You know, they're so corrupt. It's obvious. And we have the emails, and the evidence keeps piling up against them. You know, what's coming up in the future should be very interesting. But with that, let's move on to the next and final story of this podcast today. The Department of Justice goes rogue, refuses to answer GOP subpoena. Biden DOJ targets Trump but protects Hunter. Let's play a clip.
The former president and current frontrunner for the Republican Party has been indicted several times.
Yep.
Obviously, his supporters think it's BS and his detractors think it is accountability. And in the same time,
like I've said before with the lawyer or the Georgia case with them prosecuting the lawyers. Everybody should be against the Georgia one in particular. It's just like they're indicting his lawyers for giving him legal advice and filing paperwork. Like, come on. Again, that's going to just hurt all of us so much if this precedent is set.
We are learning that the DOJ is rejecting subpoenas from Congress in an investigation as to what Hunter Biden is doing, which will connect to what Joe Biden is doing. The DOJ has effectively gone rogue. Only way you can call it out. They're indicting Donald Trump, trying to destroy an election, cheating. And then when Republicans say, okay, well, let's take a look at what's going on with Hunter, they say, nope. If you thought that there was a working system in this country, you were wrong.
Yeah.
Or I should say law enforcement. What really is happening is that two factions are fighting for control of one governmental system. And whatever you want to call that. I mean, this story is, partly I'm shocked.
He wants to
and
say
partly
Civil
I'm
War.
not. The DOJ saying that they're going to let Hunter Biden off the hook effectively. Well, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Washington Examiner reports the Department of Justice informed the House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday night that it would not cooperate with subpoenas for two FBI agents involved in the department's investigation of Hunter Biden because of the committee's stipulations for their depositions. Carlos Uriarte, DOJ Assistant Attorney General, claimed in a letter obtained by the Washington Examiner to Committee Chairman Jim Jordan that his subpoenas to the two agents lack legal effect and cannot constitutionally be enforced because Jordan had prohibited DOJ lawyers at their depositions. The subpoenas issued by the committee prohibit the attendance of agency counsel at appearances by two FBI employees where the committee has indicated it will ask questions regarding information they learned within the scope of their official duties, including regarding the ongoing criminal investigation. He also noted the compelling testimony from the pair of FBI officials, Special Agents Thomas Sobocinski and Raisha Holly, I'm probably pronouncing those names wrong, of the FBI's Baltimore field office, was premature because the DOJ was open to continuing discussions with Jordan. Jordan's deposition rule aligns with House rules, which do not permit department counsel at depositions. The DOJ and the committee could, however, negotiate to have Sobocinski, probably maybe that, and Holly appear voluntarily with DOJ lawyers instead of appearing in the form of a deposition. Let me just simplify this for all of you, my friends. The DOJ will do what they want when it comes to shutting down Trump, and they will reject what they want because they will do what they want. They have called parents protesting at schools terrorists. They've indicted Donald Trump. They have locked up pro-life activists for staging sit-ins, threatening them with now 11 years in prison, up to. They have placed January 6 rioters in solitary, now going on years. And we're learning that Enrique Tarrio and many of the other Proud Boys are facing, I think, 33 years in prison for seditious conspiracy. Now, I can certainly criticize a lot of what the Proud Boys have done. Don't get me wrong. And if you want to come out and argue that they crossed a line, a moral line, and you think they deserve to go to jail, fine. I don't think 33 years is appropriate. I think it's way over the top. But make any argument you want. Tell me you think they deserve life in prison.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do it. I'll disagree, but make the argument. Yeah. And I will respond with, what about any of the other far left extremists? Any of them?
Yep.
What about the rioter who just got awarded something like $3 or $4 million because
one of the Proud Boy leaders today? This was recorded yesterday. This video from Tim Pool, I believe, and then today they sentenced a Proud Boy member for 17 years in prison for wiggling a fence. He wiggled a fence that a police barricade, and he got 17 years in prison for that. Do I think he should have been doing that? Absolutely not, just to clarify. But 17 years in prison? I've seen leftists over the last 5 years do this countless times, and they don't even get charged for anything. And this guy gets 17 years for that. Wow, it's insane.
We're using expanding foam rounds. What about the rioters in Washington, D.C., the far leftists who won a multi-million-dollar settlement from the city? You see where this goes? If you're on the left and you engage in insurrection, they give you millions of dollars. If you're on the right, they'll lock you up for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you are the son of Joe Biden, they will block your efforts to seek justice because there are evil people. This is out. Look, I'm sorry, man. You want to talk about all the things you don't like about Trump? Sure. You want to say Trump is corrupt in a lot of ways? He's a businessman. Fine. Say it. Don't care. But there is no comparison to a lifelong career corrupt individual in the Biden family to Donald Trump. Sorry. Trump's president. He's in politics for one term. And everybody loses their minds.
Yep.
And Joe Biden's been doing this for decades.
Yep.
We know it. It's all there for you. He lies and lies again. And this is what you get. Now, I'll tell you the solution. I get really annoyed by these people who are screaming for violence because they're wrong, and that is the path to defeat.
Yeah, they're stupid.
There was a super chat we got yesterday on IRL, and they're like, you know, Tim, you get so mad saying that no one's doing anything, but then when we say it's time to take action, you're like, no, wait, don't.
Not that action.
It's the stupidest thing. I'm sorry. It's just too stupid.
It's really stupid.
What I'm talking about
no violence.
You have parents.
Anyone who like is watching this that thinks that violence is a good idea, look at January 6th. I don't think it was as bad as all these people think it is, obviously, and there's a lot of evidence that cops lied on it, but look at Joe Rogan, biggest podcast on the planet, right? He got convinced and was talking about for years about how January 6th was so bad. You go and do violence, it's going to turn people off, and Joe Rogan's in the middle, you know? He's actually leaning more towards Trump more than ever right now, and he doesn't like Biden. So if you just are calm and just don't get violent, you'll turn normal people over to your side. But yeah, if you go and start committing acts of violence, it's not going to work out. January 6th should have definitely shown everybody that.
You have employees. There, I was specifically referring to a woman. I think it's a woman who had claimed on Facebook, a prominent singer or entertainer, that puberty blockers were a scam hurting children. And then because of the backlash and threats, they went, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I said this. And it's just like, that's the problem. Winning the culture war and gaining back power requires confidence from the people. And violence does not build confidence. The government has a monopoly on violence. And when they enact that violence, even then, it breaks down and erodes the system. That's how you end up with Black Lives Matter, exploiting videos of police brutality or police action in general and saying, fear them, they're illegitimate. The last thing anyone needs is some moron, anti-establishment figure to engage in any kind of violence. January 6th was exactly what they wanted to remove Trump's name from the ballot. Do not give them more.
Please don't give them more.
What you do. It's really simple. Download Public Square. Yep. Yeah, I know. And a lot of people are like, what? An app? Dude, Bud Light tanks. We're now hearing that these big hedge funds are getting scared of ESG because they're like, we are losing
That's
power.
What we do. Yes,
Money
not
talks,
violence.
BS walks.
Do all this.
Target, stop
Boycott.
going there. Only shop at companies that support your values. You can find this out by going to Public Square on the app and looking for these businesses. Don't vote for these evil people. Vote for good people. Knock on doors. Ballot chasing.
People in Georgia, this is a great example. Brian Kemp, the governor, I think he's up for re-election. I don't remember if it's 2024 or 2026, but primary this guy. The guy is evil. He's like, I'm not going to investigate Fannie Willis. There's no evidence that she did anything wrong. And I think it's against the Constitution, apparently. Why would you have the power to investigate a corrupt DA? And why would the Congress in Georgia be pushing for it if it was unconstitutional? And the evidence is she's prosecuting lawyers for giving legal advice. That's all the evidence you need. That's so un-American. It's outrageous. I've never heard of such a thing, ever. I don't think there ever has been in the American history. And now this is what this woman's doing. And not only just to anybody, I've never heard about this happening to anybody. And it's happening to a former president. What are you doing? Like O.J. Simpson, like Johnny Cochran, I think that was his lawyer, right? So, and he probably knows the guy's guilty, knew the guy was guilty, but no, he filed the paperwork and got him off. That's what lawyers do. But now you're prosecuting them for just not even getting Trump off, just giving him advice and filing a couple pieces of paperwork. That's all the evidence. Primary these people. Stop voting for them. Get rid of these people in your state. If you know, you can primary them. Don't think you're like, okay, I'm a Republican, I would rather have him than a Democrat, which I don't even know. But primary him. Get someone American first that wouldn't do something like this. He's so political, it's outrageous. He doesn't like Trump, even though Trump got him elected. He canvassed for him like crazy, Trump did. And he got him elected, and now you won't even like investigate a blatant conflict of interest where she campaigned on hating Trump, and now she's going after his lawyers just for giving him legal advice? Come on, no evidence. Yeah, so primary these people. Stop voting for these people. Mitch McConnell also, he's breaking. He doesn't support any American first agendas either, and now his head's falling apart. He's froze again. He's in the middle of a speech, freezes. Stop voting for these people. Please, 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 please. There's plenty of other people you can support. I'm sure. Convince some really awesome people to go into politics and vote for them, you know?
Harvesting. Don't get me wrong. They'll accuse you of crimes. They'll lie. They'll cheat. They'll steal. They will lock you up for questioning if they cheated. That's what they're doing right now because it's the only move they have left. But, my friends, for the regular people that you need to win over, because this is going to require getting a lot of moderate and uninitiated people to wake up.
Yep.
You need to convince them to join X, formerly Twitter. Tell your liberal aunt, if they ask you something, do you see this story, what Trump did? Like, I didn't see it. How did you not see it? Well, I don't know. Are you on X? Are you on Twitter? Well, go on there and send it to me. Get them on these platforms so they can be exposed to new information. Famously, that woman from the Westboro Baptist Church got de-radicalized by being on Twitter and being exposed to other people.
Interesting.
That's the path forward.
Yeah, what's his name? Brendan Struck, the guy who started the walkaway movement. He was a hardcore never Trumper. He was a leftist. He hated all that stuff. And then one of his friends randomly on Facebook sent him a thing about how it was like a Trump lie. And he's like, no, it wasn't. He was all pissed off. And she said, can you just look at it and just humor me? He's like, fine, I'll look at it. And he said he was distraught for days after that because he went and looked at it. He's like, oh, no, it's right. And then he looked at a couple more things. He's like, oh, no. And he was distraught for days because he got so fooled by it. So just talking to people wanting to do the us versus them thing, it's the worst thing ever. This is a leftist tactic to do that. Don't shut out people that are on the left. Be friends with them. Be nice to them. Then they'll be like, oh, you're on the right. You're a Trump supporter because they get all these ideas from the media. Trump supporters are evil. They're far right, blah, 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 blah. You know, we've all heard all of it. No, don't do that. Be nice to the people on the left, be friends with them, and just if politics come up, just subtly disagree. And if they start getting mad, it's like, oh, it's not a big deal to me. That's what I always do. I've like 5-10 years ago, I used to like get in heated debates about politics, and then I realized it just turns people off. They don't even want to talk about it. Then they just think you're wrong. Now I'm just like, if politics come up, oh, okay, cool. Let's talk about it. Oh, you don't think? Okay, whatever. You know, oh, but have you heard of this? And if they start getting mad, it's like, oh, I'm not even worried about it, man. Oh, and then you just start talking to them about something that you have in common. Then that's what your friend's about. Oh, did you actually see the new fight coming up on UFC or whatever? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I did. If they still want to talk about politics, again, man, I don't know, you know. And then just go on. But then you keep them in your circle, and then you do this occasionally. And because you're friends with them, and maybe they'll go look it up later. Maybe they're like, oh, that idiot. I'm gonna go Google that. So next time I hang out with him, I'm gonna school that guy. And he's like, oh, actually, oh, damn, maybe I was wrong, you know. But just cutting people off on the left off and not being friends with them, they never get exposed to this stuff, and they're always just gonna be radicalized like that. You know, it's interesting. So yeah. Try to really be friendly with people and don't get mad, even if they think the dumbest stuff. You know what I mean? If they think the dumbest stuff, like, oh, you haven't seen this, you haven't seen this, you haven't seen this. And just be chill about it. Don't get mad if they don't believe you. The chances of you actually changing someone's mind are minuscule. So just pepper it in. Just pepper it in, and maybe you will. But I guarantee you, if you're in a heated debate, all those negative emotions towards you and towards the situation, it's just going to reestablish what they already thought. You know, it's going to reconfirm that to them. So, yeah, just relax and try to de-radicalize people like Tim is saying, and get them to join X, or just have subtle conversations and never get mad about it. You know, or do your best anyways. And if you do start getting mad, just end it, because if you get mad, it's going to reaffirm what they already think, and that's obviously not helpful.
Nonviolent. economic. We gain power by building through meritocracy. They gain power through force. But you cannot maintain.
And the only reason why they're doing that by force is because people in the middle don't believe it because of the media. But don't do force yourself and just show them, hey, we don't do it by force. That's their tactic. We're chill. We're chill. Even if we disagree, hey, I'm chill. Because again, you're probably not going to change their mind anyway. So why even get mad about it? What's even the point? And these people are out here. It's like, well, I'm mad because these people think this stuff. You already know they think this stuff. So it's like, just relax. Relax and just chill and just try to slowly convince them over time. Non-violent, non-forceful, just conversation and show them proof occasionally. And there you go.
That crackpot concept. If there's a dude who is building widgets, the only thing they can do to fund their efforts is to try to steal them from you. So it's simple. Only economically support those who agree with your values. Do not economically support those who don't. And then the donor funds dry up, their elections fail, they become desperate, try and use the force of the DOJ against you, but it cannot work because, like I said, it makes them look illegitimate. Who was it who tweeted? Fani Willis's indictment of Trump may have been the greatest campaign gift anyone could give to him.
Yeah.
He's the victim now. He's being unjustly prosecuted and persecuted. You know, they say that when someone tries to assassinate a political leader, their approval rating skyrockets. What do you think happens to Donald Trump when you try to imprison him as the frontrunner? The majority of Americans, even large numbers of Democrats, I think the majority of Democrats think that the prosecution of Trump is political. They are hurting themselves in their violent, thrashing desperation.
Well, especially the Fani Willis one. Call her Fanny, by the way. Quit calling her Fani. No, she wants to be a dumb idiot. Make fun of her name. I don't care how it's supposed to be pronounced. I don't care. Fanny, we all know what that means. That's what she is. So we're going to call her that, right? So, even Democrats, though, should be against this just because it's like if they were going after Biden and ruining his attorney-client privilege and prosecuting his lawyers for giving him legal advice. Could you imagine? I'm not a leftist, but I'm not going to go along with that and set that precedent. That's terrifying. No, it's just like, no, if he's actually guilty, it should be right on the face. We don't have to go and do any of that type of stuff. Right? We'll win anyways because he actually broke the law. And we're not going to go after his lawyers for defending him. That's ludicrous. That's so against the American way. So even Democrats should really just hate this whole, especially the Georgia case in particular. But then even you go look at the New York case, he filed the paperwork, the financials for his payment to Stormy Daniels. It wasn't exactly how it was supposed to be. Well, could it have been negligence? Maybe they just didn't know. Oh, yeah, but still, we're going to go after him for it. It's unheard of. So even the people on the left for this stuff should just be like, no, because it's going to hurt you and your political allies later because they're going to use the same tactics from the right eventually if you set these precedents. And we as normal people, they could go and just, again, if you're doing this to a former president, what could you do to anybody else? You're not a president. They're doing that to a president and they're doing this precedent. Any prosecutor going after you for getting legal advice and trusting your lawyer, they're just going to be like, no, you're in trouble. Your lawyer's in trouble. You're both going to prison for a decade. Look at the precedent is Donald Trump. Vaughn County versus Donald Trump. There we go. There you go. That's the precedent set. And that's how law works. If you get a precedent, it's not obviously ironclad, but there's a precedent set that you can use that with judges in your trial to get you prosecuted. Yeah, why would you want that? It's crazy.
Let them have it. I look at these stories and I wonder, I'm like, they want Trump supporters to act a fool. Don't do it.
Yes, they do.
Smile.
On Twitter, I saw this a ton of times. Every indictment from Trump, every time they're like, "Oh, you guys are so mad, go do something crazy," and they say way more than crazy. But I'm not going to talk about that. But yeah, that's what they do. They're like, "Go do all this, and this." Oh yeah, you're so mad. If you're really mad, do this. Yeah, they try to bait you into it. Don't do it. On January 6th, I was upset about the election too. But in hindsight, you're just like, okay, they just bait you into this. Mike Pence was the last thing that he should have just sent it back to the states to recertify. But Donald Trump picked wrong. It was his fault, to be completely frank. He shouldn't have picked Mike Pence as president or vice president. And that if you would have got someone in there that actually would have had his back and just went and told the states to reinvestigate for a week and then let's bring it back. If you guys find it's all legit, fine. They did the same thing in 1960. JFK, alternate electors, went from Hawaii to Washington, and Nixon's just like, okay, well, let's investigate it. And then the Hawaii investigated it, and they're like, look, no, actually, JFK won. And then JFK won. Nixon took the alternate electorate, now the official one, because they did the recount, and there you go. So that's all legal. You can go do all that, but now it's just like even the lawyers bringing that up and giving that advice and filing the paperwork to do the same thing that JFK did. Oh, no. Now that's illegal, and you're going to get prosecuted for it. Insanity.
And avoid any opportunity that they could smear you or lie about you. Don't let them have it. Instead, open an ice cream shop. Sell ice cream. Make money. Make the right investments. Watch Bud Light fail. There is money to be made, there is success to be had, and there is a shining, beautiful future for you in this country when you focus on building your family, working hard, rolling up your sleeves, getting in shape. Stop eating the brominated flours and drinking the brominated vegetable oil. Mm-hmm. Stop drinking sodas and high fructose corn syrup. Start exercising. Yep. You want to know what you can do to win? It's simple. Be in shape, start a family,
and
work hard, make money, only support businesses that support you, and make sure you advocate for and vote for politicians that you trust that are standing up for what you believe in.
Yep.
Republicans suck for the most part. Democrats overwhelmingly suck. And libertarians tend to be okay.
Mises Caucus ones.
It will not be easy.
Libertarians suck
too.
The
answer to this.
Gary Johnson.
Talk about it. Talk about it. That's all you got to say. If someone goes, "Did you see that Donald Trump got indicted?" Be like, "That was crazy." And then they got that thing. And this is how. Let me slow down. Here's how I respond. Someone comes to me and says, "Did you hear about Donald Trump being indicted?" I'll be like, "Yeah, that's crazy, man." What was it they were saying that like he was trying to get people to like find votes or something like that? I don't know. Right? You saw it. Yeah, that's crazy. And then you got that Biden thing. Man, I mean, who are we supposed to vote for this time around?
Yeah,
you got Trump being accused of the election stuff. You got Joe Biden.
I would also bring up the lawyer thing I keep bringing up. I would definitely be like, that's crazy. But the fact that they're getting rid of his attorney-client privilege and now they're indicting his lawyers, now no one's going to want to represent anybody and give anyone legal advice and defend it because, man, like now they're going after lawyers. Isn't it crazy? Like attorney-client privilege, if he gets convicted and it stands, man, that's scary. Even though if Trump did something wrong, it's like, ooh, that lawyer thing, that's freaky.
That Ukrainian guy came out and said that he was bribing people. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I don't know anything about that. And be like, look, I'm just saying, I think they're all crooks.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Then they go look into it.
Someone who only hears bad things about Trump that, I hear you, I think they're all crooks.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's the easiest path forward. I'm just saying
it's not easy,
let them
but
engage
that's the
in
best.
This crack pottery and make themselves look illegitimate. And you just go out there and be successful.
Yep.
This election is going to come down to, in my opinion, procedural moves.
Yeah, that's what I was
mail-in voting, ballot.
Yeah, that's what I was saying though. It's just like just be calm and make money and don't really care. They're going to think what they want with or without you. And with you, if you're calm and like to make arguments me and Tim were just saying, you could actually convince them. But if you get mad and just fight it with them, it's never going to happen.
Harvesting, etc. That's how you win this one. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. All this is really interesting. The DOJ going rogue and everything. And it's crazy, but we shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't at all. And it's going to be more of this. We understand they're corrupt. Just stay calm. Show people that they're corrupt. Just calmly. Don't debate them. Just have conversations. And if they start getting amped up, just change the conversation and bring it back later. Like Tim was saying, yeah, it's crazy, and then you see the Hunter Biden thing and all that, or the attorney-client privilege is getting ruined. That's what you should focus on. Not, just debating and just be, you're wrong, Trump's awesome and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. They're not going to believe you. Give them other stuff to research that they'll actually look into. Oh, yeah, the lawyers, that's scary, though. Yeah, Trump may be corrupt, I guess we'll see in the trial, but it's scary that his lawyers are even, it's lawyers? Yeah, it's going to, or you're like, yeah, Biden's corrupt, too. They're all corrupt, Then you can have some common ground. But, yeah, I am also going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. I've been at it for, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Wow. Yeah, so I'm going to call it. Definitely appreciate you joining me. You actually got it during the day and not so late tonight. So the plan is 2 p.m. Eastern. That's when I'm planning on being back tomorrow. So, yeah, we'll have more interesting stories. I'll have my my usual, take on everything. It should be fun. All right, 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, The David Carson Show. Like, subscribe, share this video, share this podcast. Definitely appreciate it. I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.